Several years ago, as I was thumbing through Success magazine, I came across a study that Gallup did on what people thought it meant to be a success. That appealed to me because I've always been interested in helping others to become successful, and I wanted to know what Gallup had gleaned. Their answers fell into 12 different categories, but the number one answer was good health. 58% of the people surveyed identified that with success over anything else. I don't know about you, but I value good health and I've been blessed with it. But if I had only good health and nothing else, I don't know that I would label myself as successful. One of the things I've discovered is that people often find it hard to define success. But if you don't know what success is, how will you ever achieve it? That's why I want to help you identify a definition of success that will work for you. Success is a journey. Let me begin to illustrate by telling you a story. A few months ago, I stood before 74 employees of Enjoy, the organization that I founded in 1985 to teach leadership and personal development, and prepared to tell them some news that I knew would be exciting to some and discouraging to others. I was going to tell them that in a year's time we would be moving the company from San Diego, California to Atlanta, Georgia. Enjoy President Dick Peterson and I had been talking about the possibility of moving the company for about 6 months. It had begun as a casual what-if conversation, but then we started giving it more serious thought, and we discovered that moving to Atlanta made sense professionally, logistically, and economically. We knew that if we wanted to go to a new level in our growth and development, not only as a company but as individuals, we needed to make this change. Gang, I'd like to have your attention, I started. I have a very important announcement to make. 1 year from now, we will be moving Enjoy to Atlanta. I saw a whole range of reactions. Some looked shocked. Others looked like they had just been punched in the stomach. For 50 minutes, Dick Peterson and I explained all of our reasons for the move, gave them the stats and the information on Atlanta, and showed them a video from the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. And we told them that anyone who was willing to go to Atlanta would have a job when they got there. We weren't sure what kind of reaction we'd get from the staff. We were proposing a major move that would radically change their lives. What a surprise it was when over 90% of the team said that they would move or were considering moving to Atlanta. They were willing to take the trip. That got me thinking. Why were so many of them willing to be uprooted, leaving behind everything that was familiar, including family and friends, to move all the way across the country? I concluded that they were willing to go for 4 reasons. First, we gave them a picture of where they were going. The positive working environment, the greater number of lives that we would be able to touch, the improvement in their quality of life, and how we as a company would have the opportunity to go to the next level. They could see it all, the benefits to them personally and to the company. Second, we answered their questions. The prospect of taking a journey can create a lot of insecurity and leads to lots of questions. And in that first meeting, we were able to answer nearly all of them. Third, they had experienced personal success in their lives. As a team, Enjoy was experiencing success, and so were the individuals. They were responsible for the company's success, and at the same time, they were enjoying the fruit of that success. Fourth, they were no longer the same and wanted to continue to have significance. Once a person has tasted success and realizes that his efforts have significance, it's something he never forgets, and that he never wants to give up. Making a difference in the lives of others changes your outlook on life and your priorities. You may be saying to yourself, that's great. It's good that your people want to move to Georgia, but what does that have to do with me? I'm not going to Atlanta. What about the definition of success? It's true that you may not be moving to Atlanta, but you are preparing to go on a journey, the journey of success. And that trip is capable of taking you a long way, maybe further than you've ever dreamed. To take it, you'll need the same things that our people at Enjoy needed: a picture of where you are going, answers to your questions about success, knowledge of what success is like, and the ability to change and continue growing. It's my desire to provide those things to you in this book. I want to help you discover your own personal picture of success, teach you what it means to be on the success journey, answer many of your questions, and equip you with what you'll need to change yourself and keep growing. In the process, you'll discover that success is for everyone: the homemaker and the business person, the student and the person approaching retirement, the athlete and the local church pastor, the factory worker, and the entrepreneur. The problem for most people who want to be successful is not that they can't do it. The main obstacle for them is that they misunderstand success. Maltby Babcock said, "One of the most common mistakes and one of the costliest is thinking that success is due to some genius, some magic, something or other which we do not possess." What does it mean to be a success? What does it look like? Most people have a vague picture of a successful person that looks something like this: the wealth of Bill Gates, the physique of Arnold Schwarzenegger or Cindy Crawford, the intelligence of Albert Einstein, the athletic ability of Michael Jordan, the business prowess of Donald Trump, the social grace and poise of Jackie Kennedy, the imagination of Walt Disney, and the heart of Mother Teresa. Now that sounds absurd, but it's closer to the truth than we'd like to admit. Many of us picture success as looking like some other person, but it's obvious that you and I can't be someone other than who we are, and we especially can't be 8 other people. And more important than that, you shouldn't want to be. If you tried to become just like even one of these other people, you wouldn't be successful. You'd not only be a bad imitation of them, you would eliminate the possibility of becoming the person you were meant to be. Even if you avoid the trap of thinking that success means being like some other person, you might still have a wrong picture of success. Frankly, the majority of people misunderstand it. They wrongly equate it with achievement of some sort, with arriving at a destination or attaining a goal. Here are several of the most common misconceptions people have about success. They think success is wealth. Probably the most common misunderstanding about success is that it has something to do with money. A lot of people believe that if they accumulate wealth, they'll be successful. But wealth does not bring contentment or success. Industrialist John D. Rockefeller, a man so rich that he gave away over $350 million in his lifetime, was once asked how much money it would take to satisfy him. His reply, "Just a little bit more." King Solomon of ancient Israel, not only the wisest but also the richest man who ever lived, said, "Whoever loves money never has money enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with his income. Wealth is not success." They think success is a spatial feeling. Another common misconception is that people have achieved success when they feel successful or happy. But trying to feel successful is probably even more difficult than trying to become wealthy. The continual search for happiness is one of the main reasons that so many people are miserable. If you make happiness your goal, you are almost certainly destined to fail. You will be on a continual roller coaster, changing from successful to unsuccessful with every mood change. Life is uncertain and emotions aren't stable. Happiness simply cannot be relied upon as a measure of success. They think success is possessing something worthwhile and specific. Think back to when you were a kid. Chances are that there was a time when you wanted something really bad, and you believed that if you possessed that thing, it would make a significant difference in your life. For me, it was a burgundy and silver Schwinn bicycle when I was 9 years old. I figured that if I had that new Schwinn bike, I'd have it made. On Christmas morning that year, when I came out and looked under the tree, I saw my vision of what a bicycle ought to be. It had everything I could ever want on it: mud flaps, chrome, bells, lights, the whole works. And for a while it was great. I loved that bike, and I spent a lot of time riding it. But I soon discovered that it didn't bring me the success or long-term contentment that I'd hoped for and expected. That process has repeated itself in my life. I found that success didn't come when I became a starter on my high school basketball team, when I became the student body president in college, or when I bought my first house. It has never come as a result of possessing something I'd wanted. Possessions are at best a temporary fix. Success cannot be attained or measured that way. They think success is power. Charles McElroy once joked, "Power is usually recognized as an excellent short-term antidepressant." There's a lot of truth in that statement, because power often gives the appearance of success, but even then, it's only temporary. You've probably heard this quote from English historian Lord Acton. "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." Abraham Lincoln echoed that belief when he said, Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Power really is a test of character. In the hands of a man of integrity, it is of great benefit. In the hands of a tyrant, it causes terrible destruction. By itself, power is neither positive or negative, nor is it the source of security or success. They think success is achievement. Many people have what I call destination disease. They believe that if they can arrive somewhere, attain a position, accomplish a goal, or have a relationship with the right person, they will be successful. But simply achieving goals doesn't guarantee success or contentment. Look at what happened with Michael Jordan. A few years ago, he decided to retire from basketball, saying that he had accomplished all the goals that he wanted to achieve. And then he went on to play baseball in the minor leagues, but not for long. He couldn't stay away from the game of basketball. Playing the game was the thing, being in the midst of the process. You see, success isn't a list of goals to be checked off one after another. It's not reaching a destination. Success is a journey. So how do you get started on the success journey? What does it take to be a success? Two things are required: the right picture of success and the right principles for getting there. The picture of success isn't the same for any two people because we're all created differently as unique individuals. But the process is the same for everyone. It's based on principles that do not change. After 30 years of knowing successful people and studying the subject, I have developed the following definition of success. Success is knowing your purpose in life, growing to reach your maximum potential, and sowing seeds that benefit others. You can see by this definition why success is a journey rather than a destination. No matter how long you live or what you decide to do in life, you will never exhaust your capacity to grow toward your potential, nor will you run out of opportunities to help others. When you see success as a journey, then you'll never have the problem of trying to arrive at that elusive final destination, and you'll never find yourself in a position where you've accomplished some final goal, only to discover that you're still unfulfilled and searching for something else to do. Another benefit of focusing on the journey of success instead of on arriving at a destination or achieving a goal is that you have the potential to become a success today. The very moment that you make the shift to finding your purpose, growing to your potential, and helping others, successful is something you are right now, not something you vaguely hope one day to be. To get a better handle on each of these aspects of success, let's take a look at each one of them. First, knowing your purpose. Nothing in life can take the place of knowing your purpose. Millionaire industrialist Henry J. Kaiser, the founder of Kaiser Aluminum, as well as the Kaiser Permanente healthcare system, said, "The evidence is overwhelming that you cannot begin to achieve your best unless you set some aim in life." Or, to put it another way, if you don't try to actively to discover your purpose, you're likely to spend your life doing the wrong things. I believe that God created every person for a purpose. As psychologist Viktor Frankl said, everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out a concrete assignment that demands fulfillment. Therein he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is as unique as his specific opportunity to implement it. Each of us has a purpose for which we were created. Our responsibility and our joy is to identify it. The second component of success is growing to your potential. Novelist H.G. Wells said that wealth, notoriety, place, and power are no measures of success whatsoever. The only true measure of success is the ratio between what we might have been and what we have become. In other words, success comes as the result of growing to our potential. It has been said that our potential is God's gift to us, and what we do with it is our gift to Him. But at the same time, our potential is probably our greatest untapped resource. Henry Ford said, "There is no man living who isn't capable of doing more than he thinks he can do." We have nearly limitless potential, yet few ever try to reach it. If you want to improve your ability to grow to your potential, follow these tips. Concentrate on one main goal. Nobody ever reached his potential by scattering himself in 20 directions. Reaching your potential requires focus. Concentrate on continual improvement. David D. Glass, chief executive officer of the Walmart stores, once was asked who he admired most. His answer was Walmart founder Sam Walton. He said, "There's never been a day in his life since I've known him that he didn't improve in some way." Commitment to continual improvement is the key to reaching our potential and to being successful. Each day you can become a little bit better than you were yesterday. It puts you one step closer to your potential. And you'll also find that what you get as the result of your growth is not nearly as important as what you become along the way. Forget the past. My friend Jack Hayford, pastor of Church on the Way in Van Nuys, California, said, "The past is a dead issue, and we can't gain any momentum moving toward tomorrow if we are dragging the past behind us." I like the attitude of Cyrus Curtis, who once owned the Saturday Evening Post. He had a sign hanging in his office that said, "Yesterday ended last night." It was his way of reminding himself and his employees that the past is done, and that we should be looking forward, not back. Maybe you have made a lot of mistakes in your life, or you've had an especially difficult past. Work your way through it and move on. Don't let it prevent you from reaching your potential. Finally, to increase your ability to grow, focus on the future. Baseball Hall of Famer Yogi Berra said, "The future isn't what it used to be." And while that may be true, it's still the only place that we have to go. That's where your potential lies, ahead of you, no matter whether you are 8 or 18, 48 or 80. You still have room to improve yourself. You can become better tomorrow than you are today. As the Spanish proverb says, "He who does not look ahead remains behind." When you know your purpose in life and are growing to reach your maximum potential, you're well on your way to being a success. But there's a third part to the success journey: sowing seeds that benefit others. Without that aspect, the journey can be a lonely and shallow experience. It's been said that we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Austrian-born physician, theologian, and philosopher Albert Schweitzer stated it even more strongly. The purpose of human life is to serve and to show compassion and the will to help others. For him, the success journey led to Africa, where he served people for many years. For you, sowing seeds that benefit others probably won't mean traveling to another country to serve the poor, unless that is the purpose you were born to fulfill. And if it is, you won't be satisfied until that's what you're doing. However, if you're like most people, helping others is something you can do right here at home, whether it's spending more time with your family, developing an employee who shows potential, helping people in the community, or simply putting your own desires on hold for the sake of your team at work. The key is to find your purpose and help others while you're pursuing it. As entertainer Danny Thomas said, "All of us are born for a reason, but all of us don't discover why." Success in life has nothing to do with what you gain in life or accomplish for yourself. It's what you do for others. The success journey will not look the same for everyone, because the picture of success is different for every person. What doesn't change are the principles used to take the journey. They can be applied at home, in school, at the office, on the ball field, and in church. That's what the remainder of this book is about. The principles that can help you start working toward knowing your purpose, growing to your potential, and sowing seeds that benefit others. It doesn't matter where you are now. You can learn and apply these ideas. You can be successful today. Let me tell you about someone who currently is traveling with me on this success journey. His name is Charlie Wetzel. He writes and does research for my books and articles. Several years ago, if you had asked him what success was, he probably would have said, "Success is finding a career you enjoy, where you move up and working your way to the top of the organization." To him, success was a destination, a place you tried your best to reach, but whose achievement depended on a lot of factors outside of your control. Charlie's been working with me for about 2.5 years now, and that's not the way he thinks about success anymore. He now looks at success as a journey, and he sees himself as successful. He's been working to fulfill the purpose that he believes that God has given him, helping others grow and reach their potential, and he does it through writing. Each day he's growing, trying to reach his potential, professionally, personally, and spiritually. And along the way, he's helping not only me, but also all the people who read my books. Success is no longer a distant future goal. It's a present reality. What's changed for Charlie? Several things. First, his attitude toward success. He measures it differently and works toward it daily. Second, he has acquired many of the tools needed to be a success, the principles that are contained in this book. For many people, that's all it takes to become successful. The hardest part is getting started. That's why I want to help. I've had the privilege of helping Charlie and many others get started on the journey. They've experienced success, and they're not only enjoying the journey themselves, but they're taking others with them. Please allow me to do the very same thing with you. Let me help you get going and know what it means to make the success journey. You'll never look at success the same way again, and your life will be changed forever. Come on, let's get started. Chapter 2. Where would I like to go? As I began working on the success journey, I set aside some time to talk to a dozen or so friends, family members, and colleagues to find out their thoughts about travel. One of the things that I asked them was, where would they like to go if they could take a trip to anywhere in the world? They gave me quite a variety of answers. Janie Hansen wanted to return to Heidelberg, Germany, where she had spent 3 years with her husband Brad while he was in the service. Miriam Phillips said she wanted to go to Australia to explore the outback and to see some of the unusual animals. Tom Dunnan also wanted to go to Australia, but his greatest desire was to visit the Sydney Opera House to see a performance there. Tom's an outstanding singer, so that travel choice was a natural for him. It was a lot of fun talking with them about their dreams for travel. Their eyes lit up and their speech quickened as they pictured in their minds the places that they would see and the activities that they would do. I also asked everyone another question. Why hadn't they taken their dream trip? A couple of people said they didn't want to go alone and were waiting for a traveling companion. Many of them said they didn't have the money. Others noted that they just lacked the time. It's been my experience that we make time and set aside money for things that are most important to us. The people who go on their dream trips don't have all the unlimited money and time. They make the journey because they plan ahead and they're willing to pay the price required for them to go. Now let me ask you a similar question. If you could go anywhere, where would you like to go? Not in terms of vacations, but in your life. Your answer to that question does a lot to determine whether or not you're successful. You see, we're all on a journey, whether we know it or not. We are traveling inevitably toward the ends of our lives. So the real question for us is whether we're going to select a destination and steer a course for it, or allow ourselves to be swept along with the tide, letting others determine where we'll end up. The choice is entirely up to us. If you live in a town near the ocean, you may have seen advertisements for cruises to nowhere. Maybe you've even been on one. Here's how it works. People get on board a cruise ship, and instead of setting out for a lush island or other exotic location, they simply go out to sea and travel in circles for a couple of days. Meanwhile, they dine on sumptuous meals. They simply go out to shows and participate in onboard activities. It's similar to checking into a fine hotel or resort. The problem a lot of people have is that their lives are too much like those cruises. They're on a trip with no set destination. They're in a holding pattern, and they occupy their time pursuing pleasures or engaging in activities that don't have any lasting benefit for themselves or others. Meanwhile, they travel in circles. In the end, they finish no better than they started. A cruise to nowhere may be a fun way to occupy a few days of vacation time, but it's no way to spend your life. As I mentioned before, success is a journey. You don't suddenly become successful when you arrive at a particular place or achieve a certain goal. But that doesn't mean that you should travel without identifying a destination. You can't fulfill your purpose and grow toward your potential if you don't know what direction you should be going. That's why you need to discover your dream. I believe that each of us has a dream placed in our hearts, a vision deep inside of us that speaks to our very soul. It's the thing we were born to do. It draws on our talents and gifts. It appeals to our highest ideals. It sparks our feelings of destiny. It is inseparably linked to our purpose in life. It is this dream that starts us on the success journey. And it acts as a compass, telling us the direction we should travel. If you're moving in any direction other than toward your dream, you'll miss out on the opportunities necessary to be successful. A dream not only gives us the hope for the future, but it also brings us power in the present. It allows us to prioritize everything we do. A person who has a dream knows what he's willing to give up in order to go up. He is able to measure everything he does according to whether or not it contributes to the dream, concentrating his attention on the things that bring him closer to it and giving less attention to everything that doesn't. Ironically, many people do exactly the opposite. Rather than focusing on their one true dream, they want to keep every option open. At first, it's fun and it seems like a great idea. But as time goes by, you can't make any progress because you spend all your time preserving the options rather than moving forward. But when you focus on a dream, you don't have that kind of a problem. Vince Lombardi said, "I firmly believe that any man's finest hour, his greatest fulfillment to all he holds dear, is that moment when he has worked his heart out in a good cause and lies exhausted on the field of battle, victorious." A dream provides the perspective that makes that kind of effort possible. When we have a dream, we're not just spectators sitting back hoping that everything turns out all right. We're taking an active part in shaping the purpose and the meaning of our lives. And the winds of change don't simply blow us here and there. Our dream, when pursued, is the most likely predictor of our future. That doesn't mean that there are any guarantees, but it does increase our chances for success tremendously. Dare to dream and act on your vision. Over the years, I've spent a lot of time learning about vision and what it means to have a dream, because it's such a critical part of leadership. Let me give you the stages for developing a successful dream based on my personal experience and observation. Stage 1. I thought it. The whole process begins with the seed of an idea, a vision that grows out of a heartfelt desire. Many people discover their dream in a flash of insight after working in an area for years. Some receive it in time of prayer. Others are motivated by an event from their past. Maybe you've already experienced the I thought it stage and discovered your dream. If you haven't, search yourself. Everyone has a dream inside of him. Stage 2. I caught it. The moment you discover your dream, the thing that you were created to do, is an incredible experience. But that alone is not enough to take you on the success journey. The development of a successful dream is a process, and the next step of development requires you to invest in your dream emotionally. It needs to grow beyond your thoughts and carry over into your feelings. In 1935, Hubert H. Humphrey wrote a letter to his wife during his first trip to Washington, D.C. It captures the emotion of the then 24-year-old pharmacist from Minnesota. It says, "I can see how someday, if you and I just apply ourselves and make up our minds to work for bigger things, we can someday live here in Washington and probably be in government, politics, or service. Oh, gosh, I hope my dream comes true. I'm going to try anyhow." Humphrey's dream did come true. In 1946, he became the mayor of Minneapolis. In 1949, he successfully ran for the U.S. Senate. And in 1964, he served as the Vice President of the United States under Lyndon Baines Johnson. In all, Humphrey served in government for 32 years. Stage 3. I sought it. An old Italian proverb says, "Between saying and doing, many a pair of shoes is worn out." Lots of people have dreams, and many of them even have strong feelings about them. But what separates the developer of a successful dream from a mere daydreamer is committed action. Between the I caught it and the I sought it stages, dreams don't die. They simply fade away. It takes hunger, tenacity, and commitment to see a dream through until it becomes a reality. Once you discover your dream, go after it. Stage 4. A few shot it. During its early stages, a dream is an incredibly fragile thing. As corporate leadership expert, management consultant, and friend Bob Beal says, dreams are like soap bubbles floating close to jagged rocks on a windy day. One of the reasons dreams are so fragile at this stage of the journey is that they are so new. We haven't had time yet to let them grow or develop. When a seedling oak is only a year old, a child can tear it out by the roots. But once it has some time to become firmly established, even the force of a hurricane can't knock it down. Dreams are also more easily shot down at this point because they are usually attacked by the close friends or family members, since they're the only ones who know about them. Our hopes and desires may be able to weather the criticism of a stranger, but they have a more difficult time surviving when undermined by a friend. Stage 5. I got it. Most people have no idea how close they are to breaking through and living their dream, to reaching the I got it stage. Success is achieved in inches, not miles. For example, the average player in the Major League Baseball hits about 250. Another way to say it is that he gets a hit once for every 4 times he bats. Someone with average fielding skills who bats 250 can play in the major leagues, but he won't be remembered after he's left the game. Contrast that with someone like Tony Gwynn, who plays for the San Diego Padres. He is considered one of the best hitters in baseball. He's already won 7 National League batting championships in the 14 seasons that he's played. Someday he'll be elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. If you don't know baseball, you might expect that to be successful as he is, he'd be twice as good at hitting the ball as the average player. But that's not the case. As I write this, Tony has a lifetime batting average of .336. That means he gets 1 hit in every 3 times at bat. You'd have to go to 3 baseball games before you saw that 1 extra hit Tony got compared to the average player. It's a small difference, not a huge one. Your ability to live your dream may be closer than you think. Stage 6. Some others fought it. Unfortunately, not everyone will want to celebrate with you when your dream begins to become a reality. And sometimes you'll be surprised by which people want to light your fire and which ones want to put it out. Let me tell you a humorous story that illustrates the point vividly. I once heard about a Canadian bird who decided that it was too much trouble to fly south for the winter. He said to himself, I can brave a winter. A lot of other animals do it. It just can't be that hard. So as all the other birds flocked away towards sunny South America, he stayed behind and waited for the winter. By the end of November, he was having serious second thoughts. He'd never had it so bad. He was freezing cold and he couldn't find any food. Finally, he broke down and realized that if he didn't get out of there soon, he wasn't going to make it. So he started flying south all by himself. After a while, it began to rain. And before he knew it, the water was turning to ice on his wings. Struggling, he realized that he couldn't fly any longer. He knew he was about to die, so he glided down and made his last landing, crashing to the ground in a barnyard. As he lay there stunned, a big cow came by, stepped over him, and dropped a plop right on him. He was totally disgusted. Here I am, he thought, freezing to death. I'm about to die. I'm on my last breath, and then this. What an awful way to go. So the bird held his breath and prepared himself to die. But after about 2 minutes, he discovered that a miracle was happening. He was warming up. The ice on his wings was melting. His muscles were thawing out. His blood was flowing again. He realized that he was going to make it after all. He was so excited and happy that he began to sing a glorious song. At that moment, the farm's old tomcat was lying in the hayloft in the barn, and he heard the bird singing. He couldn't believe it. He hadn't heard anything like it for months, and he said to himself, Is that a bird? I thought they'd all gone south for the winter. He came out of the barn, and lo and behold, there was the bird. The old cat crossed over to where he was, pulled him gently out of the cow plop, cleaned him off, and ate him. Now, there are 3 morals to this story. Number 1, not everyone who drops a plop on you is your enemy. Number 2, not everyone who takes a plop off of you is your friend. And number 3, if somebody does drop a plop on you, keep your mouth shut. Stage 7. I taught it. Any dream worth living is worth sharing with others. After all, that's a big part of what it means to be successful. But that's not how everyone looks at it. I've observed that when people realize their dreams, they react in one of 2 ways. Some hold the dreams close, trying to keep it all for themselves. When they do, their dream often shrinks. Because they haven't shared it, they have to sustain it all by themselves. But the person who shares his dream gets to watch it grow. The synergy of shared ideas often takes it to a whole new level. The dream becomes greater than the person launching it ever imagined that it could be. And the others who participate in it often adopt it as their own dream. Stage 8. Others bought it. If you live your dream and successfully share it, others will buy into it. People have a desire to follow a leader with a great dream. Now more than ever, people are looking for heroes. Unfortunately, many are looking in places that are likely to leave them disappointed: sports, music, movies, and television. But real heroes are leaders who can help others achieve success, people who take others with them. And it all begins with a dream. If you haven't already discovered your dream, you're probably realizing how much you've been missing. A dream will provide you a reason to go, a path to follow, and a target to hit. Besides, as Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. Not long ago, I saw a segment on television, 60 Minutes, in which Mike Wallace was interviewing one of the Sherpa guides from Nepal who helped climbers reach the top of Mount Everest. "Why do you do it?" Wallace asked. "To help others do something they cannot do on their own," answered the guide. "But there are so many risks and so many dangers," said Wallace. "Why do you insist on taking people to the top of the mountain?" The guide smiled and said, "It's obvious that you've never been to the top." Going to the top takes a dream and a great deal of commitment. The greater the journey, the more committed you have to be to take it. As you prepare to continue on your success journey, it's necessary for you to make a commitment to yourself, to find your dream and to follow it. The road that lies before you is one that I know well, because I've made that commitment myself, and I have traveled on the journey for over 30 years. I will travel alongside you until you are ready to carry on without me. The potential for greatness lives within you. The key to achieving greatness is finding and developing your dream. You're on your way. Chapter 3. How far can I go? Whenever I travel to Washington, D.C., I try my best to get to the Smithsonian Museum. I love history, especially of the United States, and there are a lot of incredible artifacts and displays at the Smithsonian from our nation's 200 years. Of all the exhibits, one in particular is my favorite. It shows a video clip of a speech made by President John F. Kennedy to Congress on May 25, 1961. Every time I see it, I get goosebumps. It records the moment that Kennedy called America to execute the most incredible and improbable real-life journey ever conceived. He cast vision for the achievement of an idea that had been written about as early as A.D. 160 by Greek satirist Lucian of Samosata, and thought about for thousands of years. Kennedy said, "I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before the decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth." With today's popularity of science fiction stories, traveling to the moon almost seems mundane. After all, on television, you can see people living in deep space or trekking around the galaxy every day of the week. But in 1961, it was just about the wildest goal imaginable. Today, it would be like proposing that a person swim the Pacific Ocean from California to Japan and then back again. Back in the late 1950s and early 60s, America found itself in a space race with the Soviet Union, and we were falling way behind. I was about 10 years old when we heard that the USSR had launched the first man-made satellite, Sputnik, into orbit. It felt like the equivalent of going to bed one night as the best athlete in your school and waking up the next morning only to find out that Babe Ruth was the new kid in class. What a shock! Then they launched Sputnik 2, which carried the first space traveler, Laika the dog, and in 1959 they sent off Lunar 1, the first spacecraft to escape the Earth's gravitational field and fly by the moon. It seemed that the Soviets were landing one knockout punch after another. In the midst of the hopelessness of the situation, President John F. Kennedy came forward, stood before the United States Congress, and said he would see a man on the moon by the end of the decade. Most people thought it was impossible. Even some of the people at NASA thought it couldn't be done. The technology required to make it happen didn't even exist, and they weren't sure that it could exist. But that didn't stop Kennedy. He not only made the impossible our goal, but he gave it a deadline. Despite all the doubts, 9 years later, on July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 lifted off from the Pad 39 at Kennedy Space Center and began a journey of 244,930 miles to the moon. 4 days later, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, Jr. landed the lunar module Eagle on the surface of the moon, and 500 million people watched on television as Armstrong took his first step into the powder-fine gray dust of the moon and uttered his famous line, "That's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind." We had done it. That trip shouldn't have been possible, but it happened. What propelled us to accomplish such a feat, and also in record time? It wasn't the strength of our technology or the Cold War threat of Soviet superiority. We put people on the moon because we believed that we could do it. In the blink of an eye, John F. Kennedy's speech made a lunar landing change from an impossible dream to an obtainable target. It hardly mattered where we were technologically. A moon landing became a reality because of a change in attitude. You see, when our attitudes outdistance our abilities, even the impossible becomes possible. I've talked to people who worked in the space program, and they've told me that the atmosphere was electric with expectation back then. Every day as they worked, one thought was foremost in their minds. We're putting a man on the moon. The president's goal contained the dream and prompted the positive attitude needed to make it happen. That's the power of a dream coupled with the right attitude. In fact, your attitude isn't just a necessary contributor for you to be successful. It's the main factor which determines whether you will live your dream, not intelligence, talent, education, technical ability, opportunity, or even hard work. Attitude determines how far you can go on the success journey. Yogi Berra, whose comments always seem to contain both humor and truth, said, "Life is like baseball. It's 95% mental and the other half is physical." Despite the unusual math, Berra knew how much the average person underestimates the role of our minds in the success process. Even if you have great intelligence, talent, education, technical know-how, opportunities, and a strong work ethic, if you lack the right attitude, you will never enjoy the success journey. That may be a revolutionary idea to you, so I'm going to say that again. If you don't have a good attitude, you will never enjoy the success journey. But when you do have a good attitude, it makes all the difference in the world. As Lowell Peacock said, attitude is the first quality that marks the successful man. If he has a positive attitude and is a positive thinker who likes challenges and difficult situations, then he has half his success achieved. We may or may not like to think about it, but where we are and who we are today are the results of our attitudes. I once read a funny story about President Abraham Lincoln that shows how our attitude affects who we are. An advisor to Lincoln once recommended a particular person for a cabinet position, but Lincoln balked at that suggestion. He said, "I don't like the man's face." "But sir," said the advisor, "he can't be held responsible for his face." Lincoln replied, "Every man over 40 is responsible for his face. Who you are and how you think can be read in your face, too. When you look in a mirror, if you see a sour expression, you're seeing the outward expression of your attitude. Most people with bad attitudes usually point to something other than themselves to explain their problem. But we can't rightfully blame our attitudes on anything or anyone but ourselves. It's not what happens to us, but what happens in us that counts. Our attitudes are not based on circumstances, our upbringing, limitations, or the actions of others. Anyone, no matter how good their circumstances are, can find a reason to have a negative attitude if that's what they want to do. And everyone, no matter how bad their circumstances are, can find a way to maintain a good attitude. You see, attitude is a choice. Psychologist, philosopher William James said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that people can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind." Our background and circumstances may have had an influence on who we are, but we are responsible for who we become. In his book, Go for the Magic, Pat Williams recounts a story told by St. Louis sports writer Bob Brogue about Baseball Hall of Fame player Stan Musial, who was known as one of the game's most consistent players. One day when Musial was playing for the St. Louis Cardinals, a teammate came into the clubhouse whistling. He turned to Stan and said, "I feel great. My home life is happy. I'm in a groove. I feel like I'm going to get 2 hits today. Ever feel like that, Stan?" Smiling, Musial looked at him and said, "Every day." There's a quote over the door of the Phoenix Suns locker room that sums up the importance of choosing a positive attitude. It came from former Boston Celtic Bill Russell. It says, "The game is scheduled and we have to play it. We might as well win." What a wonderful insight, and from a real winner. While Russell played with the Celtics, they won an incredible 11 NBA titles in 13 years. Having a positive attitude worked for him, and it can work for you. The truth is, the better your attitude is, the further that you will go. If you talk to people in the top organizations across the country, you would find that the higher you go, the better the attitudes you'll find. In fact, a Fortune 500 study found that 94% of all the executives they surveyed attributed their success more to attitude than any other factor. A good attitude makes it possible for you to be successful. It gives you fuel so that you want to pursue your purpose, grow to your potential, and sow seeds benefiting others. It can give you the staying power to improve, but it also makes the journey more enjoyable along the way, no matter where it takes you. As the former great UCLA basketball coach John Wooden said, things turn out the best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out. What does it mean to have a great attitude? You've probably heard the old expression that a positive person sees a glass as half full instead of half empty. That's true, but it only tells a small part of the story. I believe there are 7 signs of a great attitude. Sign number 1, belief in self. Herb True said, many people succeed when others do not believe in them, but rarely does a person succeed when he does not believe in himself. He was exactly right. Positive self-worth is one of the prime characteristics of a person with a good attitude. As psychologist Dr. Joyce Brothers said, it is no exaggeration to say that a strong positive self-image is the best possible preparation for success in life. Sign number 2, willingness to see the best in others. One of the most effective ways to help you see the best in others is to do what I call putting a 10 on people's heads. Here's what I mean. We all have expectations of others, but we can choose whether those expectations are positive or negative. We can think that others are totally worthless or absolutely wonderful. When we make the decision to expect the best and actually look for the good instead of the bad, we're seeing them as a 10. Sign number 3, the ability to see opportunity everywhere. Greek philosopher Plutarch said, as bees extract honey from thyme, the strongest and the driest of herbs, so sensible men often get advantage and profit from the most awkward circumstances. No matter what the circumstances are, positive people see opportunities everywhere. They understand that opportunities aren't based on luck or position. They're the result of the right attitude. Opportunities exist where you find them. Sign number 4, focus on solutions. Likewise, people with a positive attitude focus their time and attention on solutions, not problems. Just about anybody can see problems. That doesn't take anything special, but positive people don't just detect problems, they solve them. They maintain a solution mindset, seeing a solution in every problem and a possibility in every impossibility. As said by Louis D. Brandeis, the Supreme Court Justice after whom Brandeis University was named, most of the things worth doing in the world have been declared impossible before they were done. Sign number 5, the desire to give. Nothing has such a positive impact on a person as giving to others. Carl Menninger, psychiatrist, author, and one of the founders of the Menninger Foundation said, generous people are rarely mentally ill people. I have observed that they are also rarely negative people. People who have a giving spirit are positive. That's because giving is the highest level of living. They focus their time and energy on what they can give to others rather than what they can get from them. And the more a person gives, the better his attitude. Sign number 6, persistence. Don B. Owens, Jr. said, many people fail in life because they believe in the adage, if you don't succeed, try something else. But success eludes those who follow such advice. The dreams they have come true did so because people stuck to their ambitions. They refused to be discouraged. They never let disappointment get the upper hand. Challenges only spurred them on to a greater effort. Those characteristics, the ability to stick with it, overcome discouragement, and keep going in the face of disappointment, all result from a good attitude. Sign number 7, responsibility for their lives. The final characteristic of positive people is their willingness to take responsibility for their own lives. Unsuccessful people spend their time ducking responsibility. But successful people understand that nothing positive happens until you're willing to step forward and take full responsibility for your thoughts and actions. It's only when you're responsible for yourself that you can look at yourself honestly, assess your strengths and weaknesses, and begin to change. WWZ said, nothing can stop the man with the right mental attitude from achieving his goal. Nothing on earth can help the man with the wrong mental attitude. If you're constantly in a battle to keep your attitude positive, you can use some help. Here are 4 top tips to help you get your attitude in tip-top shape. The first tip is, claim your responsibilities, not your rights. One of the greatest sources of discontent among people today is caused by their fight to secure their rights. Think about your situation. Have you ever been wronged? Have there been times when you haven't gotten everything you deserve? Your answer to these questions is almost certainly yes. We live in an imperfect world, and because of that, as long as we live, we won't see a time when everything we do is rewarded justly. So you're faced with a decision. Are you going to spend your time and energy on what should have been, or are you going to focus on what can be? Even when truth and justice are on your side, you may never be able to right your wrongs. Continually fighting for your rights in an imperfect world will just make you resentful, angry, hateful, and bitter. Those are all destructive emotions that tap our energy and make us negative. And besides, when people focus on their rights, they're often looking backward rather than forward. You can't make any progress when you're facing the wrong way. As Glenn Clark said, if you wish to travel far and fast, travel light. Take off all of your envies, jealousies, unforgiveness, selfishness, and fears. The second tip is, associate with positive people. Charles Tremendous Jones said that the only difference between who you are today and the person you will be in 5 years will come from the books that you read and the people that you associate with. Who you spend your time with has an especially big impact on your attitude. The old adage is true. Birds of a feather do flock together. Think about the people that you spend your time with. If you're choosing negative friends, then you are choosing to have a negative attitude yourself. But when you spend time with positive people, you're helping yourself see things in a better light. As Henry Ford said, "My best friend is the one who brings out the best in me." The third tip is, find ways to release stress. One of the most common things that fatigue people and push them toward negative thinking is stress. That's why it's so important to find ways to release tension and regroup mentally. I recommend something active that requires both mental concentration and physical effort. Play golf, shoot darts, hit baseball, run, do aerobics, work out, work in your garden, or go for long walks. What you do is not important as long as it relieves stress and has a positive impact on your thinking and your health. The fourth tip is, take action to change your attitude. The quality of your life and the duration of your success journey depend on your attitude, and you are the only person in this world who has the power to make it better. Dr. William Glasser said, "If you want to change attitude, start with a change in behavior." In other words, begin to act the part as well as you can of the person you would rather be, the person you most want to become. Gradually, the old, fearful person will fade away. The key to change is action. The problem most people have is that they're waiting until they feel like it to change their attitudes. But that only causes them to keep waiting, because they've got the whole process backward. If you wait until you feel like it to change your attitude, you will never change. You have to act yourself into changing. An act of your will lead you to action, and your positive action will lead you to positive attitude. Henry Ford said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." The mind, more than anything else in life, determines how far you can go on the success journey. Let me show you what I mean by telling you a story about my friend Paul Nanny. Paul has a lot of hobbies and interests. His favorite is flying, which he has been doing since he was a teenager. In 1976, Paul decided to take his interest to a new level. He planned a solo trip around the world in a Piper Cub airplane. Flying around the world seems like quite a difficult feat in itself, but it really takes on added significance when you realize that a Piper Cub is a very lightweight plane whose wings and fuselage are made of fabric. And when Paul tried it, no one else had ever made an official flight around the world in an aircraft that light. As Paul later told others about his trip over the North Atlantic Ocean, "I felt that I had a lot in common with Lindbergh, except that he had a bigger and better equipped plane." Paul's journey started in San Diego, California, taking him across the United States and into Canada. That was smooth flying, but the rest of the trip turned out to be a series of problems, trials, and near disasters. In Greenland, his plane's wings iced up and he was forced to retrace part of his journey. In the Mediterranean, he discovered the generations-old animosity between the Greeks and the Turks when he stated his intention to fly from Kirkuk, Greece, to Istanbul, Turkey. He was told by a Greek official, "You cannot fly there from here. They will shoot down your plane. And if they don't, we certainly will." He also encountered dozens of other problems, such as trying to find fuel in the Middle East and flying through harrowing monsoons over the Bay of Bengal. As Paul proceeded on his trip, his positive attitude was his greatest ally. Not only did it bring him through the monsoons and repeated problems with customs agents and aviation officials, but it also kept his spirits up when he hit lengthy delays. But Paul's attitude served him best during what turned out to be the last part of his journey. After waiting out bad weather in Japan for a week, Paul finally took off for the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska. This was to be the longest leg of his journey, and there was going to be little room for error because of the amount of fuel the flight would take. Even if everything went perfectly in order to make it, he would have to make an intentional emergency landing at the off-limits SAC base when his fuel ran low. But Paul had a problem during his flight. When he was about midway, he received an updated weather report that prompted him to change course. But he didn't know that the base's homing beacon wasn't transmitting. And on top of that, the late weather report he had received was faulty, so he was way off course. There was nothing but ocean as far as he could see, and he ran out of fuel. A pilot from a nearby military aircraft talked to Paul as his plane glided down toward the ocean surface. He was solemn and asked Paul whether he had any last request. But despite the odds, Paul was confident that he would make it. And he did. He crashed into the 40-degree water on the North Pacific Ocean and hung on there for 2.5 hours until a Japanese fishing boat picked him up. He lost his plane and his chance at the world record he was trying to set, but he lived to tell the story. The whole thing was a Huck Finn adventure from the very beginning, said Paul. From the moment I took off, I wasn't sure exactly what would happen or where I would land, but I knew that I would make it. That's the kind of spirit Paul has. His attitude has taken him a long way, both in the air and in life. What is the condition of your attitude? Will it take you very far on this success journey? Chapter 4. Where do I find the roadmap? When was the last time you went for a Sunday drive? That's not a really popular activity these days, but it sure was when I was growing up, and it was a favorite activity of the Ramies, some wonderful neighbors that I had as a kid. It was pretty common for Mr. Ramey to say, "Come on, everybody, let's pack up into the car and go for a ride," as he rounded up the family and occasionally a neighbor kid like me. And off we'd go. We lived in Circleville, Ohio, and our Sunday drive would take us to exotic places such as Lancaster, Chillicothe, or even Columbus. What an adventure! Mr. Ramey would just drive the dirt roads and the highways that wound through the farms and the fields of central Ohio. We never knew for sure what we might see. Those Sunday drives were a lot of fun. They were a great way to spend an afternoon. But to tell you the truth, over the years, I've met a lot of people who treat life a lot like a Sunday drive. They seem to be saying, "Let's just go and we'll see where we end up." They're willing to let life take them anywhere it wants to. I'm no scientist, but I've noticed that gravity tends to pull everything down. And without some planning and direction, a person's life can do the same thing. It's not that I don't like spontaneity or fun. I love a good adventure as much as anyone else. But I'm not willing to risk squandering my potential or not fulfilling my purpose by sitting back passively and just letting things happen. Life is not a dress rehearsal. We get one chance, and if we don't make the most of it, there's nothing we can do to get our time back and try again. If you look at how people approach the planning process for the journey of life, I think you'll see that they take one of 4 approaches. First, there's Vince the victim. Vince is very quick to tell you that it's not his fault that he isn't getting anywhere in his life. He doesn't make any plans because he's busy focusing his time and energy on things outside of his control, often from his past. He frequently blames others for his lack of progress and seems to be more concerned with
finding excuses for failing than seizing opportunities to grow. In his opinion, everyone and everything other than himself have made him who he is today. Second is foot-dragging Freddie. Freddie isn't worried too much about the past, and he doesn't want to think about the future. He's focused on the present. In fact, he loves it so much that he's willing to do almost anything to maintain the status quo. He is the kind of person who hates change and avoids it at all cost. If he's making any plans, they're to keep things just as the way they are. Then there's Debbie the dreamer. Debbie loves to plan. In fact, that's what she spends a lot of her time doing. The problem is that she never turns her plans into actions. She often has great ideas and says she wants to be successful, but she doesn't want to take any risk. She's not willing to pay the price required to move forward on the success journey. Finally, there's motivated Michael. He focuses the majority of his time on the present, doing his best to maximize his potential. But one of the reasons that he's so effective today is that he spent a portion of his time yesterday planning. As a result, he's focused on his purpose, growing toward his potential, and sowing seeds that benefit others out of the positive overflow in his life. What separates a motivated Michael from all of the others? The answer is that he has goals. He has identified how he wants to fulfill his purpose and maximize his potential. You see, on the success journey, the goals we set become our roadmap. And to make progress, you have to have some kind of a map. Not because you're hoping or expecting to reach some final destination, but because it shows you how to take the journey. The first part of the trip is just as important as the last part. The main thing is to be constantly moving toward your destination. And the process of setting goals is the best way to make sure that continues to happen. Think about what's involved in taking a long trip by car. Let's say, for example, you decide to go to Chicago from Dallas. If you've never taken that trip before, you wouldn't simply hop in the car and say, I know Chicago is north of Dallas, so I'll take the first road I can find that goes north and start driving. That wouldn't make any sense at all. No. First you'd look at the map, consider the different routes you could take, and decide on the best one, based on what kind of roads you wanted to travel and what you'd like to see along the way. The point is that the journey doesn't just take care of itself. You have to plan it. If you just start driving down the road, there's no telling where you'll end up. But when you plan ahead and know where you are going, you can not only make the journey successfully, you can do it in good time and enjoy the trip. Taking the success journey requires the same kind of attention to detail that a trip to Chicago would. It needs to be broken down into smaller segments to be more manageable. Goals are like points on the map. Each one leads to the next and takes you farther to the right direction. Together, they set you on a course that leads toward your destination. And if you take a wrong turn along the way, you know it and can easily make adjustments to get back on track. With goals, you will be able to fulfill your purpose in life and live your dream. Here are some of the ways that goals do that. Goals draw out our sense of purpose. Goals give you something concrete to focus on, and that has a positive impact on your actions. As James Allen said, you will become as small as your controlling desire, as great as your dominant aspiration. Goals help us focus our attention on our purpose and make it our dominant aspiration. They help us know where we're going. And as philosopher-poet Ralph Waldo Emerson said, the world makes way for the man who knows where he is going. Industrialist Andrew Carnegie said, you cannot push anyone up the ladder unless he is willing to climb himself. The same is true of a person on the success journey. He simply won't go forward unless he's motivated to do so. Goals can help provide that motivation. As Paul Meyer said, no one ever accomplishes anything of consequence without a goal. Goal setting is the strongest human force for self-motivation. Goals show us what to do. All the motivation in the world is useless if it is wasted on things that don't matter. But that's another great thing about having goals. They also help us to determine our priorities, directing us to stick with what's important. How many successful people have you ever met who were unable to prioritize, who gave equal emphasis and energy to the trivial as well as to the critical? Our goals determine our priorities, and our priorities determine if we'll reach our goals. Goals focus us on improvement, not activity. By now you're beginning to see that success truly is a journey, not an arrival at a destination. But don't allow that knowledge to make you believe that activity alone can make you successful. It doesn't. The real key to success and to reaching your potential lies in your ability to continually improve. Activity alone does nothing for you. In fact, it can actually distract you from reaching your potential if it becomes a substitute for improvement. But when you set the right goals and work to reach them instead of simply staying busy, improvement is not only obtainable, it's inevitable. Finally, goals create mile markers of progress. I mentioned before that when we have goals, we are quickly able to know when we've gotten off track. But goals also help us to see how we're doing while we're on track. Each time we reach a goal, we can tell not only that we're making progress, but that we can also see how far we've traveled. Goals are like mileage markers on the success journey. So how do you get started in the process of creating goals for your success journey? It's not too difficult. Just follow this ROADMAP, roadmap. The letter R is for recognize your dream. Everything starts with your dream. It's an expression of your life purpose and determines what it means for you to reach your potential. If you can articulate your dream clearly, then you can create a map for your journey. The letter O is for observe your starting place. It's true that you can't begin the success journey until you know where you want to go. But you also can't be successful if you don't know where you're starting from. As Eric Hoffer, known as the longshoreman philosopher, said, to become different from what we are, we must have some awareness of what we are. The letter A is for articulate a statement of purpose. Once you've given more thought to your dream, and it has started to become clearer in your mind, you're ready to make an important step, writing a statement of purpose for yourself. I guess you could call it your philosophy of travel for the success journey. Begin with the general definition of success, knowing your purpose in life, growing to reach your maximum potential, and sowing seeds that benefit others. Then start to build on it. Your goal is to end up with a single, concise statement that expresses what you want to do in your life. The letter D is for define your goals. Once you've articulated your purpose, you're ready to begin identifying your goals, your roadmap for the success journey. They will be activities or accomplishments that you plan to complete to fulfill your purpose, develop your potential, and help others. And remember, your goals should be written, personal, specific, achievable, measurable, and time-sensitive. The letter M is for move into action. German poet and novelist Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, thinking is easy, acting is difficult, and to put one's thoughts into action is the most difficult thing in the world. Maybe that's why so few people actually follow through and act on their goals. According to Greg Harris, 67 of 100 set goals for themselves, but of those 67 people, only 10 have actually made realistic plans to reach their goals. And out of those 10, only 2 follow through and actually make them happen. The trick to acting on your goals is simply getting started. We don't have to be perfect, we only need to be making progress. Or as the Chinese proverb says, be not afraid of going slowly, be only afraid of standing still. The letter A is for adjust your plans. As you begin to act on your goals, you will need to continually review them and your progress in order to make adjustments. You will find that some goals don't really contribute to your dream or purpose and need to be eliminated. Others will need to be modified. And in some cases, you'll simply fail. But as President Abraham Lincoln said, my great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure. The letter P is for point to successes and celebrate. Finally, as you accomplish some of your goals, take time to celebrate. You deserve it. Acknowledge your successes and build on them, keeping in mind that your aim is not to achieve all your goals, but to improve constantly. As Nobel Prize-winning novelist William Faulkner said, always dream and shoot higher than you know you can do. Don't bother just to be better than your contemporaries or predecessors. Try to be better than yourself. It's hard to measure the power of goals. Retail department store founder J.C. Penney said, "Give me a stock clerk with a goal, and I will give you a man who will make history. Give me a man without a goal, and I will give you a stock clerk." Penney recognized the power and the importance of goals. One of the greatest things about them is that while you work on them, they work on you. And what you get by reaching your goals is not nearly as important as what you become by reaching them. As you explore your dreams, ponder your purpose, and identify your goals, be prepared for wonderful things to happen. There is no telling what will happen to you on the success journey. Your life may ultimately exceed your own expectations, but you've got to begin somewhere to accomplish your dream, and setting goals is a great place to start. Chapter 5. What should I pack in my suitcase? I do a lot of traveling as a speaker, and it seems as if I'm always preparing for a trip. In fact, during the last 10 years, I've logged over 2.5 million air miles just on one airline. But I'm fortunate because Margaret helps me a lot, and when I'm getting ready to leave for a trip, I usually let her know what kinds of speaking engagements and commitments I'm going to have, and she'll pack all of my clothes and personal things. But there's another packing process I go through before I take any trip. I pack my briefcase. You see, I always get a lot of work done when I travel because I have a secret. I dedicate several hours to packing my briefcase before I leave. I study my itinerary to see what free blocks of time I'll have during plane flights in my hotel room between speaking engagements, and I check to see what work I need to get done for the upcoming weeks. Then I gather all the materials I'll need for the trip, folders of notes and ideas I've collected for a lesson, quotes from my files, books and magazines I want to read and glean information from, reports I want to read, correspondence I want to answer, etc. The secret to making this system work is spending time packing myself before I leave. Since I started doing this, I've never been on the road and thought, shoot, I could have gotten this project done or finished that lesson if only I had remembered to bring along such and such. As you prepare to take the success journey, there's an essential activity that only you can perform for yourself. It's the equivalent to packing your briefcase for a trip because it determines what you will be capable of accomplishing on your journey. That activity is preparing and pursuing a personal growth plan. That process, more than anything else in life, will determine whether you will continue growing toward your maximum potential. A couple of years ago, while I was teaching a leadership conference, a man who was about 60 years old came up to me during a break and said, "I'm learning so much at this conference, I wish I would have heard you 20 years ago." I chuckled and said, "Oh, no, you don't. You wouldn't wanted to listen to me 20 years ago." "Why do you say that?" he asked. 20 years ago, I answered, I didn't have anything to say. I didn't know these things, that leadership is influence, how to spot a leader, the 80-20 principle. Everything I'm sharing with you this morning has come as a result of years of continual learning and growth. The desire and discipline to keep growing always has been very important to me. When I was growing up, I was put on a reading plan by my dad. Every day I was required to read for 30 minutes out of books that he selected. My dad's plan sure helped me learn the value of personal growth, and when I was 17, I began to take a more active role in my own development. That's when I began to read systematically and file great quotes from books and magazines. I had learned that shortcuts don't pay off in the long run. If I was going to have a chance to reach my potential, I would have to keep learning, growing, and improving. And the same is true for you. What most people don't realize is that successful and unsuccessful people do not vary greatly in their abilities. They vary in their desire to reach their potential. And nothing is more effective when it comes to reaching potential than commitment to personal growth. Making the change from being an occasional learner to someone dedicated to personal growth can be tough. It goes against the grain of the way most people live. Most people celebrate when they receive their diploma or degree and say to themselves, "Thank goodness that's over. Just let me have a good job. I'm done with studying." But that kind of thinking doesn't take you to any higher level than average. If you want to take the success journey, you've got to keep growing. As someone who's dedicated his life to personal growth and development, I'd like to help you take the leap to becoming a dedicated self-developer. It's the way you need to go if you want to reach your potential. Besides that, it also has another benefit. It brings contentment. The happiest people I know are the ones who are growing every day. Take a look at the following 10 principles. They'll help you develop into a person dedicated to personal growth. Principle number 1. Choose a life of growth. It's said that when Spanish composer cellist Pablo Casals was in the final years of his life, a young reporter asked him, "Mr. Casals, you are 95 years old and the greatest cellist that ever lived. Why do you still practice 6 hours a day?" What was Casals' answer? "Because I think I'm making progress." That's the kind of dedication to continual growth that we should have. The people who reach their potential, no matter what their profession or background, think in terms of improvement. If you think you can hold your ground and still make the success journey, you are mistaken. The only way to improve the quality of your life is to improve yourself. If you want to grow your organization, you must grow as a leader. If you want to have better children, you must become a better person yourself. If you want to be treated more kindly by others, you must develop better people skills. There is no sure way to make other people or your environment improve. The only thing you truly have the ability to improve is yourself. Principle number 2. Start growing today. Napoleon Hill said, "It's not what you are going to do, but it's what you are doing now that counts." Many unsuccessful people have what I call Sunday sickness, because they are the things that they should do to bring value to their lives that they put off and say they'll do someday. Their motto is, "one of these days." But as the old English proverb says, one of these days means none of these days. The best way to ensure success is to start growing today. No matter where you may be starting from, don't be discouraged. Everyone who got where he is started where he was. Principle number 3. Be teachable. Former UCLA basketball coach John Wooden is a great model when it comes to personal growth. He continually developed himself, and he did the same with his players, trying to help them reach their potential. One of my favorite sayings from him is this: "It's what you learn after you know it all that counts." Wooden recognized that the greatest obstacle to growth isn't ignorance, it's knowledge. The more we learn, the greater the chance we'll think that we know it all. And if that happens, we become unteachable, and we're done growing and improving. One of the impressive things about Wooden's comment is that he kept learning and growing even while he was at the top of his profession. For instance, after he had already won a national championship, he scrapped the offense that he had used for years and learned a completely new one in order to maximize the potential of his teams and the talents of one player, Louis Alcindor, later known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The result was that he and his teams moved to an even higher level of play and won 3 consecutive national championships. And if we are to reach our potential, we have to keep growing just as John Wooden did. When we remain teachable, our potential is almost limitless. Principle number 4. Focus on self-development, not self-fulfillment. The last 30 years have seen a change in emphasis in the area of personal growth. Beginning in the late 60s and early 70s, people began talking about finding themselves, meaning that they were searching for a way to become self-fulfilled. It's like making happiness your goal, because self-fulfillment is about feeling good. But self-development is different. Sure, much of the time it will make you feel good, but that's a byproduct, not the goal. Self-development is a higher calling. It's the development of our potential so that we can fulfill the purpose for which we were created. There are times when that's fulfilling, but other times it's not. But no matter how it makes us feel, self-development always has one effect. It draws us toward our destiny. As Rabbi Samuel M. Silver said, "The greatest of all miracles is that we need not be tomorrow what we are today, but we can improve if we can make use of the potential implanted in us by God." Principle number 5. Never stay satisfied with current accomplishments. My friend Rick Warren says, "The greatest enemy of tomorrow's success is today's success." And he's right. Thinking that we've arrived when we accomplish a goal has the same kind of effect as believing that we know it all. It takes away our desire to learn. It's another characteristic of destination disease. No matter how successful you are today, don't get complacent. Stay hungry. Sidney Harris said, "A winner knows how much he still has to learn, even when he is considered an expert by others. A loser wants to be considered an expert by others before he has learned enough to know how little he knows. Don't settle into a comfort zone, and don't let success go to your head. Enjoy your successes briefly and then move on to even greater growth. Principle number 6, be a continual learner. The best way to keep yourself from becoming satisfied with your current achievements is to make it a priority to learn continually. Frank A. Clark said, "Most of us must learn a great deal every day in order to keep ahead of what we forgot." Learning something every day, that's the essence of being a continual learner. We must keep improving ourselves, not only acquiring knowledge to replace what we forgot or what's out of date, but building on what we learned yesterday. Principle number 7, focus on a few major themes. Writer C.S. Lewis said, "Every person is composed of a few themes. As you begin to develop yourself, it should be your goal to identify and focus on the few themes that are at the heart of who you are." That's what I've done over the years, and it has really yielded a high return in my development. My life is people-focused. My purpose is to teach leadership and help people grow to reach their potential, so I have narrowed my personal development to 5 areas. 1, relationships, which determines how well I know people. 2, attitude, which determines how well I relate to people. 3, communication, which determines how well I motivate people. 4, leadership, which determines how well I influence people. And finally, number 5, personal growth, which determines how long I do all 4 of the others. Where you focus your attention will depend on your purpose, how you wish to help others, and what it means for you to reach your potential. At first you may be tempted to give your attention to too many things, but keep your focus narrow. Give your time and energy to only the themes that are at the heart of your life. Principle number 8, develop a plan for growth. The key to a life of continual learning and improvement lies in developing a specific plan for growth and following through with it. I recommend a plan that requires an hour a day, 5 days a week. I use that as a pattern because of a statement by Earl Nightingale that says, "If a person will spend 1 hour a day on the same subject for 5 years, that person will be an expert on that subject." Isn't that an incredible promise? It shows how far we are capable of going when we have the discipline to make growth our daily practice. When I teach leadership conferences, I recommend the following growth plan to participants. Monday, spend 1 hour with a devotional to develop your spiritual life. Tuesday, spend 1 hour listening to a leadership tape. Wednesday, spend an hour filing quotes and reflecting on the content of Tuesday's tape. Thursday, spend 1 hour reading a book on leadership. Friday, spend half the hour reading the book and the other half filing and reflecting. Now, as you develop your own plan for growth, start identifying the 3 to 5 areas in which you desire to grow. Then start looking for good material, books, magazines, audio tapes, videos, and incorporate them into your plan. I recommend that you make it your goal to read 12 books and listen to 52 tapes each year. Exactly how you go about it doesn't matter. The main thing is to do it daily. Principle number 9, pay the price. I mentioned before that self-fulfillment focuses on making a person happy, whereas self-development focuses on helping a person reach his potential. One of the trade-offs of growth is that it sometimes is uncomfortable. It requires discipline. It takes time that could be spent on other things such as leisure activities. It costs money to buy materials. You have to face constant change and take risks. And sometimes it's just plain lonely. That's why many people stop growing when the price gets too high. But growth is always worth the price you pay because the alternative is a limited life with unfulfilled potential. Success takes effort, and you can't make the journey if you're sitting back waiting for life to come along and improve you. It was President Theodore Roosevelt who said, "There has not yet been a person in our history who led a life of ease whose name is worth remembering." Principle number 10, find a way to apply what you learn. Jim Rohn said, "Don't let your learning lead to knowledge, let your learning lead to action." If your life doesn't begin to change as the result of what you're learning, then maybe you're not applying what you learn. Author and leadership expert Fred Smith once made a statement that summarizes what committing to personal growth is all about. He said, Something in human nature tempts us to stay where we're comfortable. We try to find a plateau, a resting place, where we have comfortable stress and adequate finances, where we have comfortable associations with people without the intimidation of meeting new people and entering strange situations. Of course, all of us need to plateau for a time. We climb and then plateau for assimilation. But once we've assimilated what we've learned, we climb again. It's unfortunate when we've done our last climb. When we've made our last climb, we're old, whether 40 or 80. Whatever you do, don't allow yourself to stay on a plateau. Commit yourself to climbing the mountain of personal potential, a little at a time, throughout your life. It's one journey that you'll never regret having made. As novelist George Eliot said, "It's never too late to be what you might have become." Dedication to growth not only enlarges you and increases your potential, it also motivates you. It begins a cycle which, if sustained, leads to further and more extensive growth. And that leads to a more fulfilling and productive life. Dr. Charles Garfield, who has written about people who achieve a lot in life, says this: "Peak performers do not see accomplishment as a fixed state, nor as a safe haven in which the individual is moored, completed, finished. Not once have I heard a peak performer speak of an end to challenge, excitement, curiosity, and wonder. Quite the contrary. One of the most engaging characteristics is an infectious talent for moving into the future, generating new challenges, living with a sense of more work to be done. And they also live with a sense of more growth to be experienced. One of the remarkable things I have experienced during the course of my life is the incredible power that regular personal growth brings. It determines how well equipped you are for the journey. When your growth suitcase is well packed through continual personal development, you can go further more quickly than you ever dreamed, and the journey goes more smoothly because you're better prepared for it. Even when you face obstacles, which we'll talk about in the next chapter, you're better able to keep going. It takes time to learn how to pack your suitcase. In the beginning, we all have a tendency to try to take too much with us, not only on the success journey, but on other trips we take as well. For example, a trip to Japan that Margaret and I took about 12 years ago turned out to be a disaster because we didn't know how to pack. We went out and bought 2 huge suitcases, and then we filled them up until they were ready to burst. We thought we were being smart by having only 2 heavy bags rather than a bunch of small ones. We just used porters or those rental carts like we had done in past travels. Everything was fine until we started trying to get around in Japan. We had a taxi deliver us to a train station in Tokyo, and after we got dropped off, we looked for a porter, but we couldn't find one. "No problem," I said. "I'll get one of those carts." We couldn't find one of those either. We ended up carrying those huge suitcases all over the station looking for the right track for our departure. Then we had to lug them onto the train and stow them away in our compartment. We ended up doing that all over Japan. By the second weekend, Margaret and I were ready for a divorce. In one city, as we dragged the bags, what had been described as only a short walk to our hotel, I dropped them in the middle of the street and I shouted, "If somebody wants these bags, come and get them. I'll take $5 for both of them, contents and all." Well, there were no takers. One good thing did come out of that experience. Margaret and I learned our lesson on that trip, and since then we have become very good packers. When you learn to become a good packer on the success journey, you'll be surprised by how high you'll be able to climb. The key is to focus on what you need and not anything else. I've already shared with you the areas where I concentrate my personal development: relationships, attitude, communication, leadership, and personal growth. When I started working in those 5 areas, my only goal was to improve myself, to become a better person, a more effective pastor, a stronger leader, in order to come closer to reaching my potential. But my dedication has brought other benefits that I'd never, ever hoped for. Out of the overflow of the growth I'm experiencing, I had the privilege of sharing what I've learned with others. I've written more than a dozen books. Each month, over 30,000 people receive personal growth and leadership instructions from lessons that I teach on audio cassette tapes. And thousands of people attend Enjoy's conferences each year. Last year alone, in all of my speaking engagements, I spoke to over 250,000 people. It wasn't my goal to become a best-selling author or national speaker. About 20 years ago, people began asking me to share what I've learned, and those requests keep increasing. I know that the only way I will be able to continue helping others is if I keep learning and growing every day. If you dedicate yourself to a personal development, there is no telling where it will lead you in life. But I know one thing for certain. It can take you only up. If you haven't already started, do so today. Make growth your main goal and be prepared to climb higher than you believed possible.
Chapter 6, How Do I Handle the Detours? One of the things about taking a journey is that you never know for sure whether your trip will turn out the way you planned. A lot can happen along the way that you don't expect. That's what happened to my wife Margaret and me on the way home from a trip to the Holy Land a few years ago. We've been to Israel several times, and on this particular trip, we took 50 people with us for a tour. Margaret and I are super planners, so in a week we saw more than most people thought would be humanly possible. But by the time we were headed back home, everyone was exhausted. When we arrived in Paris from Tel Aviv at mid-morning, an agent from the airline greeted us. "I'm sorry, folks," she said, "but your flight to New York has been canceled. There's a major snowstorm on the Atlantic coast, and nothing's going in or out for the next 24 hours. After a week of being on dusty roads, rushing from site to site, sleeping in strange hotel rooms, and seeing tense soldiers with machine guns everywhere, our group was ready to go back home. As we got this news, I could sense the disappointment and frustration among our people. Many who were traveling with us were older and had never been out of the United States before this trip. Previous departures from the planned itinerary had upset some of them. The major break in our travel plans was likely to send them into a panic. Margaret and I looked at each other and knew we needed to act. "Okay, gang, let's all get together over here," I said as I gathered everyone together into a corner of the airport and took a quick head count. "How many of us have never been to Paris before?" I asked. All but a few hands went up. "Oh, this is great. We've got an awesome opportunity here," I explained. "We're going to take a tour of the city." Margaret's eyes lit up as she understood the idea. She jumped right in to help. "Oh, you'll love Paris," she said. "It's the most romantic city in the world." A couple of the ladies smiled, but the majority of the group looked at us with skepticism. "We'll see the Louvre, Notre Dame Cathedral, and Eiffel Tower. You name it." "We are so lucky," I said. "Do you know how much money most people spend to see Paris? They spend thousands of dollars just to get here, but we're going to see it for free." That got the attention of a couple of the men. An hour later, we were at the hotel, and Margaret and I were working on getting the tour together. "No, monsieur," the concierge said. "There are no tours available. I can maybe arrange something for tomorrow." "It has to be today. There must be something available," I said. "No, monsieur, I'm sorry." "Then how about a bus?" said Margaret. He looked at her blankly. "Surely there's a bus in all of Paris. See if you can find us a bus, any kind of a bus, and a driver." "That's right," I agreed. "Just find a bus. We don't care where you get it or what it looks like. It could be a school bus for all we care. We'll take care of the tour ourselves." It took us a while to convince him, but finally he agreed to try. And he got us a bus, complete with a driver who didn't speak a word of English. We loaded up the group and gave them a whirlwind tour of Paris. "Take lots of pictures," we kept telling them. "You'll want to show everyone when you get home how you got a free trip to Paris out of this." We showed them everything we could. And I'll bet we even got the landmark names right, 70 or 80% of the time. They even got things they wouldn't have gotten on another tour. For instance, we spotted pop singer Madonna coming out of the Louvre, surrounded by bodyguards, and everyone got pictures of her. "It could only happen on the Maxwell tour," one of the members of the group said later. Have you ever been on a trip that didn't turn out the way that you planned? If you've done a lot of traveling, maybe I should ask instead if you've ever been on a trip that did turn out the way you planned. Because if you're like most people, you've had all kinds of things go wrong on a trip. The success journey is the same way. It's full of speed bumps, potholes, and detours. And since nobody can entirely avoid them, the question is, how are you going to handle them? Isabel Moore said, "Life is a one-way street. No matter how many detours you take, none of them leads back. And once you know and accept that, life becomes much simpler." One of the major keys to success is to keep moving forward on the journey, making the best of the detours and interruptions, turning adversity into advantage. As I've talked to people about success, I have found that the two greatest detours they face are fear and failure. When you think about it, those deterrents could have stopped our tour group from having a good time in Paris. Fear of the unknown could have kept us huddled into airports instead of heading out and enjoying the city. And nobody could have blamed us if we had given up when we experienced our first failure, not being able to find a tour. But fear and failure didn't stop us.
Neither should they stop you from taking the success journey. You see, every detour is also a potential opportunity, and it can prevent you from being successful only if you let it. All people experience fear. It's simply a part of life. 9 out of 10 people are terrified by the thought of speaking before groups. Some don't like insects. Others fear heights, deep water, financial problems, aging, or loneliness. Fears come in almost as many varieties as there are people. The fears of some well-known people from history are even comical. For example, Julius Caesar, a powerful military general and Roman emperor, feared thunder. Peter the Great, the Tsar of Russia, and an imposing figure at 6 feet 5 inches tall, was afraid of bridges. He crossed them only when there was no other alternative. And when he did, he trembled and cried like a child. An 18th century British writer and literary critic, Dr. Samuel Johnson, had a phobia about entering a room with his left foot first. Anytime he accidentally entered a room wrong-footed, he would back out again and enter again with his right foot. He took wanting to put his best foot forward to a ridiculous extreme. When it comes to dealing with fear, we have 3 choices. First, we can try to avoid it altogether. But that means staying away from every known or potential fear-producing person, place, thing, or situation. That's neither practical nor productive. If we move tentatively from place to place, always worrying about what's around the corner, we'll come face to face with something that could cause us to fear. It will tie us into knots. A second way to deal with fear is to hope that it will just go away. But that's like hoping for a fairy godmother to rescue you. Fortunately, there is also a third way to deal with fear, and that is to face it and to overcome it. In the end, that's the only method that really works. Here's a strategy to help you face the fear and do it anyway. First, discover the foundation of fear. Most of the fears we face every day are not based on facts. They are generated by our feelings. For example, a study performed by the University of Michigan showed the following. 60% of our fears are totally unwarranted. They never come to pass. 20% of our fears are focused on our past, which is completely out of our control. 10% of our fears are based on things so petty that they make no difference in our lives. Of the remaining 10%, only 4 to 5% could be considered justifiable. That means whatever time or energy we give to fear is totally wasted and counterproductive 95% of the time. Fear is interest paid on a debt we may not owe. If you've allowed yourself to be detoured by fear, then it's time to look beyond your feelings and examine the thinking that's generating your fears. Compare your thought patterns to the facts and see where they don't match up. If your focus is on the past, try to move beyond it. If you're worrying about petty things, remind yourself of what is really important. And if you can't change your thought patterns on your own, then seek the help of a professional counselor. Don't allow yourself to remain a prisoner of your feelings. Second, admit your fears. The best thing to do in case of your few justifiable fears, which is 5% or less, is to acknowledge them and keep moving forward. That's what our greatest heroes have done. For example, consider the life and the career of someone like George S. Patton, a bold and innovative general who was instrumental in the success of the Allies in World War II. You might be tempted to think that he didn't experience fear, but that's not the case. He felt the fear, but he didn't let it stop him. He once said, "I am not a brave man. The truth of the matter is, I am usually a coward at heart. I have never been in the sound of a gunshot or sight of battle in my whole life that I was not afraid. I constantly have sweat on my palms and a lump in my throat." Imagine that. One of our bravest generals thought of himself as a coward. One of the keys to Patton's success was that he learned how to deal with his own fear. He said, "The time to take counsel of your fears is before you make an important battle decision. That's the time to listen to every fear you can imagine. When you have collected all the facts and the fears and made your decision, turn off all of your fears and go ahead. If someone who considered himself a coward could do it, so can you." Third, accept fear as the price of progress. One of the things that we must realize is that the things we fear either will come true or they won't, and our fear will not positively affect the outcome. The only thing fear can do is detour us, if we let it. That's why it's critical to accept fear as the price of progress. As Dr. Susan Jeffries said, "As long as I continue to push out into the world, as long as I continue to stretch my capabilities, as long as I continue to take risks in making my dreams come true, I am going to experience fear." Fourth, develop a burning desire within you. One of the best antidotes to fear is your dream. It can fuel the flames of the desire within you until you're willing to confront and overcome your fear. Your dream can help you go where you're afraid to go and do what you're afraid to do. It will enable you to channel your fear positively. As professional boxing manager Custamatos put it, the hero and the coward both feel exactly the same fear. Only the hero confronts his fear and converts it into fire. Your dream can provide the spark that will turn your fear into fire. Fifth, focus on things you can control. Former UCLA basketball coach John Wooden, one of the best coaches who ever lived, said, "Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do." Wooden was known for stressing excellence to his players and encouraging them to work toward their potential. He never made winning a championship his goal. He focused on the journey, not the destination. Yet his work ethic and focus on things within his control earned his UCLA teams 4 undefeated seasons, an 88-game winning streak, and an incredible 10 national championships. No one had ever done that before him, and no one has done it since. As we move forward on the success journey, we need to remember what happens in us is more important than what happens to us. We can control our own attitudes as we travel on the journey, but we have no control over the actions of others. We can choose what to put on our calendars, but we cannot control today's circumstances. Unfortunately, the majority of the fear and stress that people experience in life is from things that they can do nothing about. Don't let that happen to you. Sixth, put some wins under your belt. Vince Lombardi, legendary coach of the NFL Green Bay Packers, once said, "Winning is a habit. Unfortunately, so is losing." He understood that past successes have great influence on our ability to perform well. That principle also applies to overcoming our fears. Each time we face a fear and move forward in spite of it, we are better prepared to challenge the next one. In time, we develop the habit of winning over fear, the smaller victories paving the way for the greater ones. Eventually, fear isn't a problem and no longer sends us on major detours from the success journey. Finally, feed your faith, not your fear. The bottom line is that we have a choice. We can feed our fears or we can starve them. Both fear and faith will be with us every minute of every day. But the emotion that you continually act upon, the one you feed, dominates your life. Acting on the right emotion lifts you to success, while acting on the wrong one starts you on a disheartening tour. Feeling the fear and moving ahead anyway depend on changing your thought patterns from fear means stop to fear means go. Mark Twain said, "Do something every day that you don't want to do. This is the golden rule for acquiring the habit of doing your duty without pain." The irony is that the successful person who keeps growing, taking risk, and moving forward feels the same feelings as the one who allows fear to stop him. He just doesn't let fear dominate him. The other major detour people face on the success journey is failure. Recently, my friend Max Lucado came to visit me, and a conversation that we had over dinner one night reminded me of the importance of being able to handle failure. Max is an incredible writer, one of the finest Christian writers we have today, and as we ate dinner, I asked him about getting his first book published. Well, he said, "In the beginning, nobody wanted to publish my stuff." I almost choked on my food. "What do you mean?" I said. "Max's prose reads like poetry. It's beautiful." "Nobody wanted to publish it," he answered. "I sent out my first manuscript to at least 15 publishers before one finally said yes." "Those publishers must be kicking themselves now," I said. "Max has published a lot of books and since then, and I'm guessing that he's sold a couple million copies. When you were trying to get that first one accepted, didn't you ever get discouraged and think about giving up?" "No," he said. "Every time I got the manuscript back, I thought, well, I'll just try another publisher." That's when it hit me. Max had something that just about all successful people have, the ability to fail. Wait a minute, you may be saying. I thought you were talking about the success journey. Doesn't success mean avoiding failure? The answer is no. All of us fail. As we travel, we all hit potholes, take wrong turns, or forget to check the radiator. The only person who avoids failure altogether is the person who never leaves the driveway. So the real issue is not whether you're going to fail, it's whether you're going to fail successfully, profiting from your failure, or allow failure to send you on a permanent detour. As Nelson Boswell said, the difference between greatness and mediocrity is often how an individual views mistakes. If you want to continue on the success journey, you need to learn to fail forward. When you have the right attitude, failure is neither fatal or final. In fact, it can be one of the greatest springboards to success. Leadership expert Warren Bennis interviewed 70 of the nation's top performers in various fields and found that none of them viewed their mistakes as failures. When talking about them, they referred to learning experiences, tuition paid, detours, and opportunities for growth. Successful people don't let failure go to their heads. Instead of dwelling on the negative consequences of failure, thinking of what might have been and how things hadn't worked out, they focus on the rewards of success, learning from their mistakes, and thinking about how they can improve themselves and their situations. Depending on your attitude toward it, failure can either bog you down or actually help you along your journey. Please let me help you change your thinking about failure and approach it in an entirely different way. With each failure, we can move one step further on the success journey. As hotel executive Conrad Hilton said, "Successful people keep moving. They make mistakes, but they don't quit." Here are 10 guidelines to help you change failure from detour to dividend. Number 1, appreciate the value of failure. Never forget that you cannot take the success journey without experiencing failure. In fact, train yourself to think of failures as mileage markers. Each time you fail, know that you've traveled another mile further on the road to your potential. As Yoshihiro Honda, founder of the Honda Motors, said, "Many people dream of success. To me, success can be achieved only through repeated failure and introspection. In fact, success only represents 1% of your work that results from 90% of that which is called failure. Very few unacquainted with failure will ever know the true joy of success." Number 2, don't take failure personally. Most people who never learn to fail forward are stopped because they take failure very personally. They start saying things to themselves like, "Why can't you do anything right?" Or, "You shouldn't have tried. You know that you couldn't do it." Or, "See that? You're a failure." But there's a huge difference between saying, "I have failed," and "I'm a failure." Number 3, let failure redirect you. Sometimes failure signals that it's time for a change in direction. If you keep hitting the wall, it may be time to back up and look for the door. If you keep finding yourself taking the same detour, maybe it's really not a detour, but actually your main road. But if you experience failure after failure and your dream burns within you just as strongly as ever, then keep going. But also recognize that some of the greatest accomplishments of life literally were birthed out of some kind of failure. For example, look at the life of John James Audubon. He's considered one of the great pioneers in wildlife study and preservation. But in the early 1800s, he was merely an unsuccessful shopkeeper in Louisville, Kentucky. He attempted to support himself and his wife, Lucy, in that occupation. But after struggling for 11 years, he finally went bankrupt. That failure prompted him to pursue his life's work, observing, drawing, and painting wildlife, the thing for which he will always be remembered. Number 4, keep a sense of humor. When all else fails, laugh. Now, that's my motto. It's easy to laugh when everything's going great, but it's important to laugh when everything is going wrong. Nothing improves our emotional health like laughter. It relieves stress, and it helps us quickly put our mistakes into perspective. Number 5, when you fail, ask why, not who. When things go wrong, people's natural tendency is to look for someone to blame. You can go all the way back to the Garden of Eden on this one. When God asked Adam what he had done, he said, "It was Eve's fault." Then when God questioned Eve, she blamed it on the snake. The same thing happens today. The next time you experience a failure, think about why you failed instead of who was at fault. People who blame others for their failures never overcome them. They simply move from problem to problem, and as a result, they never experience success. To reach your potential, you must continually improve yourself. And you can't do that if you don't take responsibility for your actions and learn from your mistakes. Number 6, make failure a learning experience. To be successful, one of the most important things that you'll ever do is develop the ability to learn from your mistakes. You see, as Donna Ronald Nagel said, failure isn't failure unless you don't learn from it. That learning process changes what could be a permanent detour into a springboard to your potential. Willingness to learn from failure and the ability to overcome it are inseparably linked to each other. If you're not continually learning, you're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again. It's okay if you fall down, as long as you learn something as you get up. Number 7, don't let failure keep you down. Austin O'Malley said, "The fact that you have been knocked down is interesting, but the length of time you remain down is important. As you travel on the success journey, You will have problems. The question is, are you going to give up and stay down wallowing in your defeat, or are you going to get back up on your feet as quickly as you can? Or, as a college friend of mine used to say, I'm never down. I'm either up or getting up. Number 8, use failure as a gauge for growth. When most people try to gauge success, they judge it according to how little failure they find. But that's exactly opposite of how successful people see failure. They already know what Fortune magazine found out several years ago when it analyzed successful people. Most successes failed an average of 7 times before they succeeded. You see, the more you try, the greater amount of failure you are likely to experience, and the greater amount of success. I don't know about you, but I'd rather reach 90% of my potential with plenty of mistakes than to reach only 10% with a perfect score. Number 9, see the big picture. Nothing is better at helping you deal with failure than perspective. Let me give you an example. Coaches Tom Landry, Chuck Noll, and Bill Walsh accounted for 9 of the 15 Super Bowl victories between 1974 and 1989. Do you know what else they have in common? They also had the worst first-season record of all head coaches in NFL history. Isn't that incredible? If they had judged their potential for success on their first year in professional football, they probably would have quit. If life were a snapshot and had been taken during their losing seasons, they would have been in trouble. But life isn't a snapshot. It's a moving picture. They were able to overcome their failings and continue on the journey to reaching their potential. Their failure was not final, and neither is yours. The next time you blow it, think about the big picture. There will be other days. We all make mistakes, but we can come back. Number 10, don't give up. I mentioned before that occasionally failure is a sign that we should explore other opportunities. While that is sometimes true, most often success comes as the result of good old-fashioned tenacity. B.C. Forbes said, "History has demonstrated that the most notable winners usually encountered heartbreaking obstacles before they triumphed. They finally won because they refused to become discouraged by their defeats. Failure comes easily to everyone, but the price of success is perseverance." I've made a lot of mistakes and experienced many failures in my life, probably more than the average person. But I've also experienced a lot of success. When I think back, one of the failures that stands out in my mind was an incident that occurred when I was in my first professional leadership position. I was 22 years old, and I backed down from a challenge when I should have kindly but firmly confronted the person who made it. As a result, I lost a lot of self-respect. I had wimped out when I should have stood strong. After that incident, my life could have taken a serious detour. I could have looked in the mirror every day and beaten myself up saying, "John, you're a wimp, a failure. You'll never be a success, and you're certainly not a leader." But that's not what I did. I took another route. Instead, I looked in that mirror and said to myself, "Self, that's where the sense of humor comes in, you made a big mistake. If you don't want to keep making that same mistake again, you'd better do something about it." I spent the next 2 days in my office with a legal pad thinking through the process of positive confrontation. I carefully laid out a strategy for confronting others so that the next time something like that happened to me, I could do it right. The incredible thing is that it not only helped me to succeed the next time out, but over the years, positive confrontation has become one of my greatest strengths as a leader. In fact, I've even taught over 10,000 leaders how to confront others through the Enjoy Life Club, the equipping tape I send out to leaders across the country each month. I couldn't begin to list all the failures I've had in my life, but I can tell you with certainty that I'll continue to add to that list. At 49 years old, I hope to have 30 more good years, and in that time, I'll keep failing. The issue is not whether I'm going to fail. Instead, when I fail, I need to determine whether I'm going to fail backward or forward. That's the real question. The detours can make a person better or bitter. It's my choice, and it's also yours. Chapter 7. Are we there yet? On a recent trip home to San Diego, I was trying to finish up a project I had been working on, and the pilot announced that we were starting to make our descent into the city. I could hear everyone around me straightening up their seats and packing up their belongings. But I kept working. I knew I had another few minutes before I needed to put my files back into my briefcase and get ready to get off the plane. Whenever I fly home, I can always tell how close we are to landing. If I'm sitting on the left side of the plane when the Coronado Bridge comes into view, spanning San Diego's beautiful bay, I know we're only a few seconds from touching down on the runway at Lindbergh Field, and that's when I pack up my stuff. You see, when you've taken a trip often, you come to know where you are and when you are about to reach your destination. That ability seemed hard to develop when we were kids and taking trips by the car. Do you remember that? Or if you have children of your own, you know what I'm talking about. What is the question they always seem to ask over and over when you're driving a long distance in a car? Are we there yet? Sometimes they even start asking it while you're still in the driveway. When it comes to the success journey, a lot of adults are in the same boat as children. They seem to be continually asking the question, am I there yet? Part of that comes from an impatience about being successful, but it also indicates that many people, despite their hard work, just can't tell if they're making progress or not on the journey. If you're silently asking yourself that same question, the first thing I would tell you is that you need to be asking yourself a different question. Instead of asking, am I there yet? Ask yourself, am I headed there? Remember, your goal is not to reach a destination, it's to take a journey. The second thing I would say is, look for the landmarks. Whenever you're traveling and you're not quite sure where you are, you instinctively look for a landmark to get your bearings. In fact, I bet you could identify many places because you already know their landmarks. For instance, if you saw the Colosseum, you'd say Rome. If the landmark was the Golden Gate Bridge, then you'd say San Francisco. If it was Big Ben, you'd say London. You know those landmarks either because you've seen them yourself or pictures of them. And the good news is that the same can be true of the landmarks on the success journey. All you need is someone who's acquainted with them to draw you a picture and you will recognize them. You may be saying to yourself, wait a minute, why do I need to know about landmarks? Haven't I already identified my goals? Aren't they my landmarks? That's actually a good question. But there are many major differences between goals and landmarks. Goals generally provide an external target to shoot at in order to accomplish your dream. But success landmarks are internal, not external. They mark changes in you, in your thinking and attitudes, which are then reflected outwardly in how you act. The more landmarks you pass on the inside, the farther you will travel on the outside. As you make progress on the success journey, you will frequently find yourself standing at a crossroads. And each time you do, you'll have to make a decision. Usually you have three choices: gain something, lose something, or trade something. Early in life, you make a lot of decisions that either add or subtract. But as time goes by, life gets more complicated. And if you want to keep going forward, you usually have to make more trade-offs. That's important to recognize. A lot of unsuccessful people spend much of their lives standing at the crossroads, hoping for a situation where they can receive without giving anything up. But it rarely comes. As my friend David Jeremiah says, you have to give up to go up. And the people who want to move forward without making any sacrifices get stuck at the crossroads and never go any further on their success journey. Allow me to share several of the most significant trade-offs you will have to make in order to keep moving to a higher level during the success journey. To go to the highest level of success, you will need to choose achievement over affirmation. When I was in my early 20s and working at my first job as a pastor, I was a people pleaser. Receiving affirmation from others was probably my greatest motivation in life. And when I didn't receive the recognition I desired, it really bothered me. I found out how much when I attended my first general conference. I was really excited about going to the conference because I had been very successful in my first position, and I was anxious to share my accomplishments with everyone. My situation would have been equivalent of a company's new salesman taking the smallest territory available and developing prospects and business relationships that no one believed were possible, and then generating more revenue than the experienced salesman in the territories 3 times that size. I expected everyone I met to be happy for me, but that's not what I found. Nobody wanted to hear about how well I was doing, and I didn't get the affirmation I wanted so much. I admit I was probably a little too cocky at the time, and I may have rubbed a few people the wrong way. But I also learned an incredibly valuable lesson. Affirmation from others is fickle and fleeting. If you want to make an impact during your lifetime, you have to trade the praise you could receive from others for the things of value that you can accomplish. You can't be one of the boys and follow your own destiny at the same time. Making the decision to trade affirmation for achievement isn't easy. If you're like me, it may be one of the greatest obstacles you face. But when you're willing to do it, you've passed an important landmark on the success journey. To go to the highest level of success, choose excellence over acceptability. One of the most fundamental steps anyone can take on the success journey is making a commitment to excellence. Believe it or not, lack of excellence has nothing to do with talent, personality, conditions, or luck. Excellence is always a choice. As Willa A. Foster said, quality is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skillful execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. Your level of performance is a choice. You can settle for mediocre or you can strive for excellence. But know this, you can't make adequate your goal and reach your potential. To go to the highest level of success, choose personal growth over immediate pleasure. We've already talked about personal growth in depth, but let me again remind you of its importance by communicating a statement by opera singer Beverly Sills. There are no shortcuts to any place worth going. Never forget that you cannot dedicate yourself to pursuing pleasure and make genuine progress in your personal growth at the same time. You have to choose one or the other. To go to the highest level of success, choose future potential over financial gain. There are a lot of things in life with greater value than money. Possibly the greatest of these is your personal potential. I frequently traded financial gain for the prospect of future potential, particularly when managing my career. Aside from my role as the founder of Enjoy, I've held only 4 positions in over 26 years. When I accepted my first position straight out of college, I selected the lower paying of the 2 positions I was considering because it offered greater opportunity for me to grow. And in the 2.5 decades since then, I only accepted one position that offered a higher salary than the one I left. In every other case, I gladly accepted a cut in pay to receive the opportunity for greater potential. Money often brings options, but it doesn't necessarily add value to your life. As you make decisions on the success journey, base them on potential, not dollars. To go to the highest level of success, choose a narrow focus over scattered interest. When you're young and first starting out, it's good to try out a lot of different things. That's one of the ways you'll learn your strengths and discover your dreams. But if you're going to go very far on the success journey, at some point you must narrow your focus. It's one of the major landmarks you pass into the second half of your life. Finally, to go to the highest level of success, choose significance over security. Most people enjoy feeling secure. It's a natural desire, one that psychologist Abraham Maslow recognized as important in the hierarchy of human needs. But to keep moving to a higher level and reach your potential, you will also have to be willing to bypass another landmark and trade security for significance. Newsman Tom Brokaw said, "It's easy to make a buck. It's a lot tougher to make a difference." And that's the essence of significance, the ability to make a difference in your world and the lives of others. There's no greater trade-off worth making. Over the years, I have found that there are 2 keys to being able to make good trade-offs on the success journey. The first is the willingness to make sacrifices. The truth is there is no success without sacrifice. If you are currently succeeding and you haven't made any sacrifices, then someone who has gone before you has made some that are benefiting you. And if you are making sacrifices now and you're not seeing any success, be assured either you or someone else will enjoy the fruits of those sacrifices later on. When I was growing up, my parents taught me this concept. My dad always used to say, "John, you can pay now and play later, or you can play now and pay later. But either way, you are going to have to pay." The second secret in being able to make good trade-offs throughout life is good old-fashioned persistence. You may have already heard this statement made by President Calvin Coolidge because McDonald's founder Ray Kroc was fond of quoting it. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The good news is that persistence isn't something you have to be born with to have. It's an attitude, and it can be developed and strengthened. You can teach yourself to dig in instead of give in. There's no doubt that you have to make trade-offs throughout life in order to succeed, and only through wise exchanges can we reach our potential. The problem many unsuccessful people have is that they haven't worked to develop much in their lives that is worth trading. They want to trade being a couch potato for becoming the president of the New York Stock Exchange. But it doesn't work that way. You can only make a trade when you've got something worth giving up. And when you do trade, you don't trade from the lowest level to the highest, skipping over all the levels in between. Usually, you're only able to move one level at a time, either up or down. I hope you also set your sights on moving ever forward and upward on your journey. To do it, you'll need to make trade-offs along the way, often giving up something good in order to get something better. But it's a price worth paying. And as you make those trade-offs, keep looking for the landmarks. They will tell you how you're doing, and whether or not you're coming closer to reaching your potential. Chapter 8. Is it a family trip? One of the things I love most about traveling is taking my family with me on trips, including business trips. It gives me the chance to share the opportunities and the rewards of the journey. Fairly early in our marriage, Margaret and I realized that I would often have the opportunity to travel, and we decided that any time I got the chance to go someplace interesting, she would come along with me, even if it was difficult financially. And once we had the kids, we tried to take them as often as possible. Together, Margaret, Elizabeth, Joe Porter, and I have been to the capitals of Europe, the jungles of South America, the teeming cities of Korea, the rugged outback of Australia, and on safari in South Africa. We've met wonderful people of every race and a multitude of nationalities. We've had the chance to see and do things that will remain in our memories for the rest of our lives. But our travels around the globe don't in any way compare to the most important trip we've been on together, the success journey. What would it profit me to gain the whole world and lose my family? As I talk to people about the idea of the success journey and listen to them talk about their experiences, I heard a lot of interesting stories. For example, Stephanie Wetzel told me about an incident from a choir trip that she took in high school. She and a choir of about 50 were traveling together across country on a bus along with her choir director and his wife, high school-age daughter, and 7-year-old son. The worst part of the trip was the long, hot drive across Texas. To break up the monotony, they'd pull over at a rest stop every now and then and give everyone a chance to stretch their legs and go to the restroom. After they had made one of these stops out in the middle of nowhere, they had been driving for almost an hour when they made a discovery. They couldn't find the director's 7-year-old son. They looked everywhere for him, but he wasn't on the bus. They immediately turned around and headed back toward the rest area. The director kept pleading with the driver to go faster. By the time they finally arrived at the rest stop, they were in a panic. Everyone scrambled out of the bus and began looking for him. It didn't take long to locate him. One of the boys found him in the men's room, killing flies. He hadn't even realized that he had been missed. If you have children, you know how traumatic an incident like that can be. Yet as much as parents love their children, every day many of them walk away from their families in the pursuit of success. It's almost as though they're driving down the road and they get pretty far along before they realize that they've left family members behind. The tragedy is that many value their careers, success, or personal happiness more than they do their families. They decide that it's too much work to go back, so they just keep driving. Their spouses and children are left behind to fend for themselves. To some people, marriages and families have become an acceptable casualty in the pursuit of success. But what many are now realizing is that the hope of happiness at the expense of breaking up a family is an illusion. You can't give up your marriage or neglect your children and gain true success. Building and maintaining strong families benefits us in every way, including helping us make the success journey. As Nick Steinitz said, when you have a strong family life, you receive the message that you are loved, cared for, and important. The positive intake of love, affection, and respect gives you inner resources to deal with life more successfully. I believe my greatest accomplishment in life was getting Margaret to marry me. We're partners in everything, and I know that I wouldn't have experienced any major success in life without her. But my gratitude to her and the children doesn't come from what they've brought me. It comes from who they are to me. You see, several years ago I realized that all the success of the world means nothing if you aren't loved and respected the most by those who are closest to you. When I reach the end of my days, I don't want Margaret, Elizabeth, or Joe Porter to say that I was a good author, speaker, pastor, or leader. My desire is that the kids think I'm a good father, and that Margaret thinks I'm a good husband. That's what matters most. Good marriages and strong families are great joys in life, and they make the success journey worthwhile. But they don't just happen on their own. If you want to have solid families and healthy marriages, we have to work to create them. If you have a family or intend to have one in the future, listen to the following 6 steps to building a strong family. They have helped to develop the Maxwell family, and I believe they can help you to strengthen yours. Step number 1, express appreciation for each other. I once heard someone joke that the home is a place where family members go when they are tired of being nice to other people. Unfortunately, some homes actually seem to work that way. A salesman spends his day treating his clients with great kindness, often in the face of rejection, in order to build his business, but then he's rude to his wife when he comes home. Or a doctor spends the day being caring and compassionate with her patients, but comes home exhausted and blows up with her children. To build a strong family, you have to make your home a supportive environment. Psychologist William James said, "In every person from cradle to grave, there is a deep craving to be appreciated." I've heard that for every negative thing you say to a family member, it takes 4 positive statements to counteract the damage. That's why it's so important to focus on the positive aspects of one another's personalities and express unconditional love for one another, both verbally and non-verbally. When you and your family members make it a regular practice, the home becomes a positive environment for everyone. Number 2, structure your lives to spend time together. It's been said that the American home has become a domestic cloverleaf upon which the family members pass one another while en route to a multitude of places and activities. That seems to be true. When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time with my parents, brother and sister. We went on family vacations, we had regular Saturday outings, and we ate dinner together every day. That was our special family time, and we knew not to make any plans that conflicted with it. As a parent, it's been harder for me to keep that tradition alive. We've been good about planning and taking vacations together, but sometimes we've had to be creative to get time together. For example, when the children were younger, I always tried to drive them to school in the morning and to spend some time with them. And I made it a practice to spend a few minutes with them individually at bedtime. But with all the things going on in our busy lives, we found that the only way to have time together was to plan it carefully. For example, every month I spend several hours examining my travel schedule, figuring out what lessons I need to write, thinking about the projects I have to complete, etc. And at that time, I'll plan out my work for the whole month. But before I mark any dates for work, I write in all the important dates for family activities. I'll block out time for birthdays, anniversaries, ball games, theater performances, graduation ceremonies, concerts, romantic dinners, etc. And I'll also schedule special one-on-one time with Margaret and each of the kids so that we can keep building our relationships. Then once those dates are set, I'll plan my work schedule around them. I've done this for years, and it's been the only thing that's prevented my work from squeezing my family out of the schedule. Number 3, deal with crisis in a positive way. Every family experiences problems, but not all families respond to them in the same way. And that's often what separates a family that's close from one that's barely holding together. M. Scott Peck, the author of The Road Less Traveled, has offered some remarkable insights on the subject of problems and how we handle them. He said, "It is in this whole process of meeting and solving problems that life has meaning. Problems are the cutting edge that distinguishes between success and failure. Problems call forth our courage and wisdom. Indeed, they create our courage and our wisdom. It is only because of problems that we grow mentally and spiritually. It is through the pain of confronting and resolving problems that we learn. As Benjamin Franklin said, those things that hurt instruct." If we are to grow as families and be successful at home as well as other areas of our lives, then we must learn to cope with the difficulties we find there. When you feel loved and supported by your family, you can weather nearly any kind of crisis, and you can truly enjoy success. Number 4, communicate continually. I once read an article in the Dallas Morning News that said the average couple married 10 years or more spends only 37 minutes a week in meaningful communication. I could hardly believe it. Compare that to the fact that the average American spends almost 5 times longer than that watching television every day. No wonder so many marriages are in trouble today. Just like anything else, good communication doesn't just happen by itself. It must be developed, and that process takes time and effort. Do what you can to promote positive communication in your family. Number 5, share the same values. Common values strengthen a family and are especially beneficial to children as they grow up. A study conducted by the Search Institute showed that in single-parent homes, children whose parent expresses and enforces standards thrive at twice the rate of children who don't have values promoted in a similar way. And that doesn't even take into account whether those values are what we would consider positive. The best way to get started in working toward sharing common values in your family is to take some time to identify what those values are. If you're like most families, you've never done that before. But to be able to live them out, you first must have to find them out. They are the things you are willing to go to the mat for. Let me give you 5 that we've identified in the Maxwell family so that you've got an idea of what I'm talking about. Number 1, commitment to God. Number 2, commitment to personal and family growth. Commitment 3, commonly shared experiences. Number 4, confidence in ourselves and others. And 5, the desire to make a contribution in life. The values you identify will undoubtedly be different from ours. The important thing is that you identify them. If you've never done it before, set aside some time to talk about your values with your spouse and children. If your kids are older, be sure to include them in the process of identifying them. Make it a good discussion time. And never be reluctant to take on the role of model and teacher of your family's values. If you don't do it, someone else will. Number 6, build your marriage. Finally, if you are married, the best thing you can do to strengthen your family is to build your marriage relationship. It's certainly the best thing you can do for your spouse, but it also has an incredibly positive impact on your children. As my friend Josh McDowell says, the greatest thing a father can do for his children is to love their mother. And the best thing a mother can do is to love their father. One of the most common missing ingredients in many marriages is dedication to make things work. Marriages may start because of love, but commitment is what keeps them going. Sexuality researcher Dr. Alfred Kinsey, who studied 6,000 marriages and 3,000 divorces, said, "There may be nothing more important in a marriage than a determination that it shall persist. With such a determination, individuals force themselves to adjust and to accept situations which would seem sufficient grounds for a breakup, if continuation of the marriage were not the prime objective." If you want to help your spouse, your children, and yourself, then become committed to building and sustaining a strong marriage. NBA coach Pat Riley said, "Sustain a family life for a long period of time, and you can sustain success for a long period of time. First things first, if your life is in order, you can do whatever you want." I believe that few people have ever been truly successful without a positive, supportive family. No matter how great a person's accomplishments are, I think they're still missing something when they're working without the benefits of those close relationships. True, there are people who are called to be single, but they are rare. For most people, a good family not only helps you know your purpose and develop your potential, but it helps you enjoy the journey along the way with a depth that isn't possible otherwise. And when it comes to sowing seeds that benefit others, who could possibly derive greater benefit from you than your own family members? Sometimes we need a jolt to wake us up to the less than acceptable way we've been interacting with people in our own families. I know that happened to Gary Rosberg, a friend of mine that I met through my involvement with Promise Keepers. He said that one day when his daughter was in 1st or 2nd grade, she and her classmates were asked to draw a picture of their families. She loved to draw, so she willingly tackled the assignment. That evening, she proudly brought her artwork home and showed it to her parents. When my friend looked at the picture, he said, "What's this a picture of?" "That's us," she answered. "The teacher asked me to draw us a picture of our family." He looked at the picture more carefully and saw that everyone was there except him. "Sweetheart," he asked, "is Daddy in the picture?" "No," she said. "Why not?" "This is a picture of us at home, and you're never here," she explained. It was like she had dropped the piano on him. She had said it as a simple fact without malice or any desire to inflict guilt. That was the day he decided that he was going to turn the bus around and come back for his family. If you've been traveling down the road on the success journey, but you've neglected to bring your family along, it's time for you to make a U-turn. Go back and pick up the people who matter most in your life, and commit yourself to traveling only on a journey that includes them. What greater joy could there be than a family trip of success? Chapter 9. Who else should I take with me? When our daughter Elizabeth was in her senior year of high school, Margaret and I decided to take her and the rest of the family on a trip to Hawaii as a graduation present. We told her about our plans several months in advance because Elizabeth isn't crazy about surprises. We also told her that she could invite one of her girlfriends to go along with her on the trip. What followed was 3 months of agonizing on Elizabeth's part concerning who she should take with her. There were a couple of times that Margaret and I got impatient and wanted to make the decision for her. But we resisted the temptation. We understood that no one can pick someone else's traveling companion. That is something that each person must do for herself. And Elizabeth finally made her choice, picking the girl she thought would be most compatible with her. The result, they both had a wonderful time. Maybe you haven't thought about it, but you're going to have to make similar decisions as you take the success journey. One of the questions you will need to ask of yourself is, who should I take along with me? While it may be possible for you to take the journey without others, I can tell you that you will never be able to reach your maximum potential and go to the highest level if you take the journey alone. One of the greatest lessons I've ever learned is this: the people closest to me determine my level of success or failure. The better they are, the better I am. And if I want to go to the highest level, I can do it only with the help of other people. I discovered this truth about 10 years ago as I approached my 40th birthday. At that time, I already felt very successful. I was the leader of the largest church in my denomination. I had already published 5 books. I was recognized as an authority on leadership, and I was teaching the subject in conferences and via taped lessons every month. I was fulfilling the purpose for which I was created, daily growing in my potential, and sowing seeds that benefited others. But my desire was to make an even greater impact on others. I wanted to go to a whole new level. My problem was that I had hit a wall. I was running a large organization that required a lot of my time. I had a family. I was writing books, leadership lessons, and sermons continually. And on top of that, my travel schedule was packed. I couldn't squeeze another thing into my schedule with a shoehorn and a bucket of axle grease. That's when I made the great discovery. The only places where my influence and productivity were growing was where I had identified and developed potential leaders. My intention in developing leaders had been to help them improve themselves, but I found that I was also benefiting greatly. Spending time with them had been like investing. They had grown, and at the same time, I had reaped incredible dividends. That's when I realized that if I was to make it to the next level, I was going to have to extend myself through others. I would find leaders and pour my life into them, doing my best to bring them up to a new level, and as they improved, so would I. That process has changed my life. I've gone farther on the success journey and to a higher level than I ever dreamed possible. And the people around me deserve a huge amount of the credit for my success. People such as Margaret Maxwell, my wife. It all begins with her. Marrying Margaret is the smartest thing that I ever did. Whatever success I have achieved personally and professionally, I owe to her. Dick Peterson. He's my partner and my friend. We started Enjoy together in his garage in 1985, and we've been on an incredible journey ever since. Now, as the president of Enjoy, he oversees every aspect of the business with wisdom and savvy. Dave Sutherland, a former IBM marketing executive. He's only been with me for a couple of years, but already he's making an incredible impact. Dave is the president of Enjoy Stewardship Services, the fastest-growing company in the Enjoy Group, and he is one of the strongest and most tenacious leaders I've ever seen. Dan Ryland. He's been with me for 15 years, first as my executive pastor and now as a vice president of Enjoy. Dan has carried a tremendous load for me, and he is one of the best developers of people that I've ever met. Stan Toller. I've known Stan for over 30 years. Stan was the first staff member I ever hired, and I'm grateful to have him back with me as a vice president of Enjoy. He is one of the greatest people persons I've ever known. Linda Eggers, my incredible personal assistant, she's worked for me for a total of 8 years. No one does more for me than Linda. She keeps straight a life that by all rights should be total chaos. There's almost no limit to what I can accomplish because of the wonderful people I have around me. Having exceptional people on the journey with you doesn't happen by accident. It's true that the greater your dream is, the greater the people who are attracted to you. But that alone isn't enough. You need to know what to look for in order to find the best people possible. And that means finding potential leaders. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Over the years, I've narrowed down what I look for in a potential leader to 10 things, and I want to share them with you. Here they are in order of importance. The people I want to take with me on the success journey. Number 1, make things happen. Millionaire philanthropist Andrew Carnegie said, "As I grow older, I pay less attention to what men say. I just watch what they do." I found that to be good advice. And as I've watched what people do, I've discovered that the ones I want with me are people who make things happen. They discover resources in places that you thought were barren. They can find prospects where you believed there weren't any. They create opportunities where you thought none existed. They take something average and make it above average. They never make excuses. They always find a way to make things happen. Number 2, they see and seize opportunity. Many people are able to recognize an opportunity after it's already passed them by. That's pretty easy. But seeing opportunities coming, now that's a different matter. Opportunities are seldom labeled. That's why you have to learn what they look like and how to seize them. The best people to take with you on the journey don't simply sit back and wait for opportunities to come to them. They make it their responsibility to go out and find them. Ellen Metcalf said, "I would like to amend the idea of being in the right place at the right time. There are many people who were in the right place but didn't know it. You have to recognize when the right place and the right time fuse and take advantage of that opportunity. There are plenty of opportunities out there. You can't sit back and wait." Of the people around you, who always seems able to recognize opportunities and grab hold of them? The people with those qualities are the ones you're probably going to want to take with you. Number 3, they influence others. I mentioned before that everything rises and falls on leadership. That's true because a person's ability to make things happen in and through others depends entirely on his ability to lead them. Without leadership, there is no teamwork. If your dream is big and will require the teamwork of a lot of people, then any potential leaders you select to go with you on the journey will need to be people of influence. After all, that's what leadership is, influence. And when you think about it, all leaders have 2 things in common. They're going somewhere, and they're able to persuade others to go with them. To be a good judge of potential leaders, don't just see the person, see all the people that person influences. The greater the influence, the greater the leadership potential, and the ability to get others to work with you to accomplish your dream. Number 4, they add value. Every person around you has an effect on you and your ability to fulfill your vision. You've probably noticed this before. Some people seem to hinder you, always taking more from you than they give back in return. Others add value to you, improving everything you do. When they come alongside of you, synergy develops that takes both of you to a new level. Those are the people to look for. Number 5, they attract other leaders. As you look for potential leaders to take with you on the success journey, you need to realize that there are really 2 kinds of leaders, those who attract followers and those who attract other leaders. People who attract and team up only with followers will never be able to do anything beyond what they can personally touch or supervise. For each person they interact with, they're influencing only one person, a follower. But people who attract leaders influence many other people. Their team can be incredible, especially if the leaders they recruit also attract other leaders. Beside the obvious factor of influence, there are other significant differences between people who attract leaders and those who attract followers. Here are a few. Leaders who attract followers need to be needed. Leaders who attract leaders want to be succeeded. Leaders who attract followers want recognition, but leaders who attract leaders want to reproduce themselves. Leaders who attract followers focus on others' weaknesses. Leaders who attract leaders focus on others' strengths. Leaders who attract followers want to hold on to power, while leaders who attract leaders want to share power. Leaders who attract followers spend their time with others. Leaders who attract leaders invest their time in others. Leaders who attract followers are good leaders. Leaders who attract leaders are great leaders. Leaders who attract followers experience some success, but leaders who attract leaders experience incredible success. As you look for people to join you on the journey, look for leaders who attract other leaders. They will be able to multiply your success. Number 6, they equip others. It's one thing to attract other people to you and have them join you on the success journey. It's another thing to equip them for the trip. The best people always give others more than an invitation. They provide the means to get them there. As you search for potential leaders, think about this. A person with charisma alone can draw others to him, yet he may not be able to get them to go on the success journey. However, a leader who is an equipper can empower an army of successful people capable of going anywhere and accomplishing almost anything. As Harvey Firestone said, "It's only as we develop others that we permanently succeed." Number 7, they provide great ideas. 19th century author, playwright Victor Hugo said, "There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come." Ideas are the greatest resource a successful person could ever have. And when you surround yourself with creative people, you're never at a loss for great ideas. Number 8, they possess uncommonly great attitudes. You already know how important a good attitude is to your success. It determines how far you will be able to go on the success journey. But don't underestimate the importance of a positive attitude in the people around you either. When you travel with others, you can only go as fast as the slowest person, and as far as the weakest one can travel. If you've got people around you with negative attitudes, it's like running a race with a ball and a chain on your ankle. You may be able to run for a while, but you're not going to get there quickly, and you certainly won't be able to run as far as you'd like. Number 9, they live up to their commitments. It's been said that commitment is another name for success, and that's really true. As newsman Walter Cronkite said, "I can't imagine a person becoming a success who doesn't give this game of life everything he's got." Commitment takes a person to a whole new level when it comes to success. Look at the advantages commitment gives a person as described by motivational speaker Joe Griffith. You cannot keep a committed person from success. Place stumbling blocks in his way, and he takes them for stepping stones, and on them he will climb to greatness. Take away his money, and he makes spurs of his poverty to urge him on. The person who succeeds has a program. He fixes his course and adheres to it. He lays his plans and executes them. He goes straight to his goal. He is not pushed this side and that every time a difficulty is thrust in his way. If he can't go over it, he goes through it. When the people on your team share the same level of commitment that you do, success is inevitable. Number 10, they have great loyalty. The last quality you should look for in people you want to join you on the journey to success is loyalty. While this alone is not a great characteristic for ensuring success in another person, a lack of loyalty is sure to ruin your relationship with him or her. Think of it this way. When you're looking for potential leaders, if someone you're considering lacks loyalty, don't even consider taking him on the journey with you, because in the end, he'll hurt you more than help you. I've been very fortunate as I've traveled on the success journey. Not only have I had wonderful people come alongside me and take the journey with me, but I've also had others take me along when I couldn't make it on my own. One of those people has been my own brother Larry, one of my favorite people in the whole world. Larry is 2.5 years older than me, and as a kid growing up, I always wanted to tag along with him everywhere he went. I especially loved playing football, baseball, and basketball with him and his friends. Larry was always a team captain because he was a good athlete and a leader, and it really meant something to me when he picked me to be on his team instead of letting me be the leftover kid taken as the last pick, even though I was younger and smaller than anyone else in the group. Larry did that kind of thing for me the whole time I was growing up. But he also included me as we got older, and it meant even more to me. When Margaret and I were first starting out together, we didn't have a lot of money. My first full-time position after we got married paid only $80 a month. To help make ends meet, Margaret not only taught school, but also cleaned houses and worked in a jewelry store on the weekends. We lived like that for the first 3 years we were married, and as much as I would have liked to take Margaret on vacations every year, it was out of the question. We were skimping on everything just to make it. Putting away extra money to travel was impossible. But despite that, we were able to take a vacation every one of those 3 years, thanks to Larry. I still remember when he called us. It was 1970. "John, what are you and Margaret going to do for vacation this year?" "Well," I answered, "we're just going to stay around here. We've got some things that we need to do around the house, and maybe we'll drive over to Circleville to see Mom and Dad." "That's what I thought," said Larry. "Anita and I have made reservations to fly to Acapulco for a week." "For 4? We want you and Margaret to come along with us." Larry was doing well financially. He always had a natural knack for business, and by the time he graduated from college, he was already well on his way to financial independence as the result of some skillful real estate purchases. "We won't take no for an answer," he said. Margaret and I didn't have any trouble accepting their offer. We loved both of them dearly, and we were grateful that they wanted to share their vacation time with us. And our trip to Acapulco was incredible, beyond anything we could have imagined. Margaret and I still think back on that as one of our best vacations. Fortunately, I no longer have to depend upon Larry's generosity, but he and I continue to do things together. We're taking the success journey together, not because we're brothers, but because we want to. We've decided that it is important to us, and that's what you need to do. You need to decide who you're going to take with you on the success journey. If you commit yourself to including others, you won't believe the difference it will make in your life and theirs. Chapter 10. What should I do along the way? Have you ever read a book that changed your life? One that revolutionized your thinking or altered how you live in a significant way? I have. The one that stands out most in my mind is a book I read in 1970 by Dr. Elmer Towns called The 10 Fastest Growing Sunday Schools in America. It fueled my dreams and inspired me to dedicate myself to becoming better than I was. Little did I know back then that my journey and destiny would be linked with that of the book's author, Elmer Towns. In 1975, I heard about a conference in Waterloo, Iowa, where Elmer was going to be one of the speakers, and I jumped at the chance to go. I tried to talk with him several times during the break so that I could tell him about the incredible influence he had had on my life, but every time I tried, there was a mob of people around him, and I just couldn't get close to him. After the conference was over, I went to Howard Johnson's restaurant to eat lunch, and I had just sat down when who should walk in but Elmer Towns. I introduced myself to him as he came by, and he said, "Come sit with us so that we can get to know each other." I couldn't eat a bite of my lunch. I was so excited, I just couldn't seem to swallow. And I was thrilled when he suggested that I change my travel plans so that I could sit and talk with him on his flight. We got to know each other a little that day, and it was a wonderful experience. A year later, as I prepared to host my first conference, I asked Elmer to be one of the speakers. Not only did he come and do the conference, but he spent time with me casting vision for my life, challenging me to grow, and sharing his insight and wisdom. Over the years, Elmer has been an incredible influence on me. He's been a great mentor and a friend, and he's inspired me to be a good leader. What Elmer did for me, I have tried to pass on to others. I've already spent a good part of my life teaching and mentoring others in the areas of leadership, personal growth, spiritual development, and success. And I've dedicated the rest of my time on earth to continuing to do that. So in answer to the question that was the title of this chapter, what should I do along the way, the answer is this: take somebody with you. It's not enough just to finish the race yourself. To really be successful, you need to take somebody with you across the finish line. Most people who desire success focus almost entirely on themselves, not others, and then they start to make the journey. They usually think in terms of what they can get, in position, power, prestige, money, etc. But that's not the way to become truly successful. To do that, you have to give to others. As Douglas M. Lawson said, "We exist temporarily through what we take, but we live forever through what we give." That's why it's so important that we focus on mentoring others and raising them to a higher level. And we can do that with the people from every area of our lives. That's evidently what Texas Representative Wright Patman did, according to a story told by Senator Paul Simon. He said that Patman died at the age of 82 while serving in the U.S. House of Representatives. At his funeral, an old woman who lived in his district was heard to have said, "He rose up mighty high, but he brung us all up with him." You can do the same thing with people around you. You can help them go on the success journey with you. Here are 9 principles you'll need to take in order to bring others up with you. Number 1, make people development your top priority. If you want to succeed in developing people, you have to make it a top priority. It's always easier to dismiss people than to develop them. And if you don't believe it, just ask a divorce attorney or an employer with a high turnover. But what many people don't realize is that while dismissing others is easy, it also has a high price. In business, the costs come from lost productivity, the administration of firing and hiring, and low morale. In marriage, the cost is often broken lives. I learned about this when I was in my first pastorate. My desire was to build a large church. I thought if I did, I would be a success. And I accomplished it. I took that small congregation from a first-day attendance of 3 people to a record attendance of over 300, and I did it in a tiny rural community. But I did the whole thing myself, with Margaret's help. I didn't spend time developing anyone else. And as a result, we had success only in the areas I touched. We had complaints in all the areas that I didn't touch, and everything fell apart after I left. I succeeded, but only for a moment, and I didn't bring lasting success to anyone else. I learned a lot from that experience, and in my second position, I made it a priority to develop others. Over an 8-year period, I developed 35 people, and they built up a church and made it successful. And when I left, their success continued, because those other leaders were able to carry on without me. If you want to make a difference in the lives of others, do the same thing. Commit yourself to developing people and taking them on the trip with you. Number 2, limit who you take along. Like it or not, you can't take everyone along with you on the success journey. As you begin to develop people, think of the journey as similar to a trip in a small private plane. If you try to take too many people along, you'll never get off the ground. When I teach leadership seminars, I always teach them what's known as the Pareto or the 80-20 principle. In a nutshell, it says that if you focus your attention on the top 20% in anything you do, you will get an 80% return. In the case of developing people, it means that you should spend 80% of your time developing the top 20% of the people around you. If you try to mentor and develop more people than that, you're going to be spreading yourself too thin. Number 3, develop relationships before starting out. One of the most common mistakes mentors make is trying to lead others before developing relationships with them. Look around you, and you can see it happening all the time. A new manager starts with a company and expects the people working there to respond to her authority without question. A coach asks his players to trust him and to go to the mat for him when they don't even know each other. A divorced father who hasn't seen his children in several years reinitiates contact with them and expects them to respond to him automatically, even though they haven't had time to rebuild the relationship yet. In each of these instances, the leader is expecting to make an impact on his people before building the relationship. It's possible that the followers will comply with what the leader's position requires, but they'll never go beyond that. The best leaders understand the important role of relationships when it comes to success. For example, Lee Iacocca once asked legendary Green Bay Packer coach Vince Lombardi what it took to make a winning team. Here's what Lombardi answered. There are a lot of coaches with good ball clubs who know the fundamentals and have plenty of discipline, but still don't win the game. Then you come to the third ingredient. If you're going to play together as a team, you've got to care for one another. You've got to love each other. Each player has to be thinking about the next guy and saying to himself, If I don't block that man, Paul is going to get his legs broken. I have to do my job well in order that he can do his. The difference between mediocrity and greatness is the feeling these guys have for each other. That concept doesn't apply only to football. It also applies to individuals traveling together on the success journey. If the relationships aren't there, people won't travel far together. Number 4, give help unconditionally. When you start developing people, you should never go into it with the idea of getting something out of it. That attitude will almost certainly backfire on you. If you expect to get something in return and you don't, it will make you bitter. And if you get back less than you expect, you'll resent the time that you spent. No, you have to go into the process expecting nothing. Give for the sake of giving, just for the joy of seeing another person learn to fly. When you approach it that way, your attitude will always remain positive, and the times that you do get back something in return, it's a wonderful win-win situation. Number 5, let them fly with you for a while. I want to share a secret with you. It's the greatest principle I've ever learned in the area of developing others. In fact, it's the one thing that guarantees success in mentoring. Are you ready? Here it is. Never work alone. I know that sounds too simple, but it is truly the secret to developing others. Whenever you do anything that you want to pass along to others, take someone along with you, and use an equipping model like this. First, I do it. Then I do it while you watch. I demonstrate it while you observe, and during the process I explain what I'm doing and why. Then you do it while I watch. As soon as possible, we exchange roles. I give you permission and authority to take over the job, but I stay with you to offer advice, correction, and encouragement. And finally, you do it. Once you're proficient, I step back and let you work alone. One of the great things about this is that it draws the learner up to a higher level. And as soon as he is on that higher level, it frees up the teacher to move on up to the next level. In all the years I've been equipping and developing others, I've never found a better way to do it than this. Number 6, put fuel in their tank. It's great to get people going and start them on the development process, but they won't get far without fuel. And that means resources for their continued personal growth. That's one of the greatest gifts that any mentor can give someone he's developing. I regularly share books, tapes, and videos with the people I'm developing and equipping. I also enjoy sending them to seminars. My goal is always to bring something to the table when I spend time with someone, whether it's an employee, a colleague, or a friend. I always want to be a resource person. You can do the same thing for others. Start by sharing the books and tapes that have changed your life. And also be on the lookout for good material in other people's areas of interest. There are few greater thrills than putting into another person's hands a resource that can help take them to the next level. Number 7, stay with them until they can solo successfully. I've been told that every student pilot looks forward to his first solo flight with great anticipation and a certain amount of fear. But a good flight instructor wouldn't allow a student to take that solo flight until he's ready, nor would he let that student avoid his solo once he's ready to go. I guess you could say that's the difference between a true mentor and a wannabe. It's like the difference between a flight instructor and a travel agent. The one stays with you, guiding you through the entire process until you're ready to fly. The other hands you a ticket and says, "Have a good flight." As you develop people, remember that you are taking them on the success journey, not sending them. Stay with them until they're ready to fly, and when they are ready, get them on their way. Number 8, clear the flight path. Even after teaching people to fly, providing them with fuel, and giving them permission to take the controls, some mentors don't take the last steps required to make their people successful. They don't give them an unencumbered flight path. Instead, they create obstacles such as a lack of clear direction, bureaucracy, isolation, and dishonest communication. Once you begin to develop others, check to see that you're not leaving obstacles in their path. Give them clear direction, positive support, and the freedom to fly. What you do can mean the difference between their failure and success, and when they succeed, so do you. Finally, number 9, help them repeat the process. Once you've done everything you can to help your people and they've taken off and are flying great, you may think you're done, but you're really not. There's still one more step that you must take to complete the process. You have to help them learn to repeat the development process and teach others to fly. You see, there is no success without a successor. The positive effect of developing others is remarkable, but you don't have to be a remarkable or unusually talented person to be a mentor. You can raise up people around you and teach them to fly just as I have. It does take desire and a commitment to the process, but it is the most rewarding part of success. Raising up others is the greatest joy in the world. You see, once people learn to fly, they're capable of going just about anywhere. And sometimes when they're flying high, they help you along too. I mentioned back in Chapter 6 that Margaret and I have gone to Israel several times and have taken groups with us to experience the Holy Land. One of the best parts of the whole process is always planning the trip and preparing the people for it. We spend months getting everyone ready. We meet with them periodically to teach them about what they're going to see. We try to equip the less seasoned travelers so that they're ready for the long plane flights and bus trips. We talk to them about the change in culture that they will experience. And we also spend time building relationships. The whole process does 2 things for them. It gives them a sense of security about the trip, and it creates terrific anticipation, both of which help them to have a better time. But believe it or not, our greatest goal is not for them to have a pleasant vacation. Our greatest desire is that they stretch and grow. We want the trip to change their lives. And that should also be your goal as you take the success journey. Take others with you and help them change their lives for the better. Nothing in life is more fun or has greater return. You'll never regret the time you invest in people. Afterward, what did you like best about the trip? So now you know what it means to take the success journey. Hopefully you have a stronger sense of your purpose. You understand what it means to grow to your potential, and you are ready to start sowing seeds that benefit others. But before we finish our brief journey together, I've got one other question to ask you. It's the same question I've asked my children each time we've come to the end of a journey. What did you like best about the trip? I've always asked that because my goal whenever I took my children on a trip was for their lives to be changed. I wanted them to come back better than they left. And that question was something I asked to help them process and apply what they had encountered on the journey. And now I'm asking you that question to help you process and apply the principles in the success journey. Recently, I was talking to my old friend Stan Toller, and we were reminiscing about the success journey that we've taken together. Stan and I go back a long way, all the way to our years in college. And in the early 70s, when I was ready to hire my first staff member, Stan was the person I wanted. Stan has come a long way in his life. He was born into a poor coal mining family in West Virginia. When he was a young boy, his family moved to Columbus, Ohio to try to make a better life for themselves. But it wasn't too long after the move that they lost his dad. It was very tough on Stan, but he, his mom, and his 2 brothers were able to survive. Stan began working as a pastor when he was in the 11th grade. After he finished high school, he continued working with the church and learned to be a barber in order to make a living. And he also enrolled in Circleville Bible College. On the day that he walked across the stage to receive his degree from the president of the college, who happened to be my father, Stan was the first person in his family to have received a college education. I knew from the start that Stan was loaded with talent and potential, but I also saw that he still had some growing to do. His grammar was poor, which is trouble for someone who does a lot of speaking. He lacked confidence, and he had a poor self-image. What Stan needed most was a little encouragement to help him realize his potential, and I wanted to do everything I could to provide as much of that encouragement as possible. First, I let Stan know his great value. Every day when I worked with him, I tried to let him know how much potential he had and how much I believed in him. I gave him duties that I knew would stretch him and make him grow. I encouraged him to speak at conferences and began mentoring others. And when he thought about giving up on his education, I encouraged him to keep at it. Today, Stan holds 2 bachelor degrees, a master degree, an earned doctorate, and an honorary Doctor of Divinity degree. and he continues to challenge himself and grow. He's written 7 books, and he spends the majority of his time teaching and mentoring others. I believe Stan would have made the success journey without help from me. But I'm sure glad I was able to give him a hand along the way. I think I've been able to help him go to a higher level than if he'd gone all by himself. And I know he's helped me go to a higher level. He helped me to be a success over 20 years ago when he was my sole staff member in Lancaster, Ohio. And today he continues to help me as a good friend and member of the winning team at Enjoy. I'm here to encourage you and tell you that you can do it too. You can travel the road of success. I don't know where you are on the journey because I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you in person. But whether you're just getting started in the middle of the trip or approaching the end of it, you can make it. You can travel the road you were designed to take, and you can finish strong. It certainly may not be easy. Few things worth having in life are. But if you persevere, it probably won't be long before you realize that you truly are successful. At first, others may not recognize it and you won't get the credit you deserve. But as you continue to grow and work at fulfilling your purpose, a time probably will come when others suddenly consider you an overnight success and say, "Wow, how did he get so good so quickly?" And if you continue to be growth-oriented rather than goal-oriented, you'll stay on the path of success. And someday people may even give you more credit than you deserve. But no matter what happens, keep moving forward on the journey, staying true to your new definition of success. And as you go, make sure you take others with you. 3, 5, or even 10 years from now, I hope we have a chance to meet, and things will have changed for both of us. At that time, I hope you will tell me that you've gone higher up the mountain than you ever expected, and we'll reminisce, as Stan and I have. And that's when I'll ask you again, what did you like best about the trip?
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program. Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.